What's going on, guys? It's Aaron here. You know what the best part about doing the Schmoedown Rundown for SK Plus is? It's not talking to all the great guests that we've had. It's not breaking down each and every match every week for the Schmoedown. It's the fact that I get to do it in my underpants, and nobody can tell me not to. And if I'm going to do it in my underpants, I might as well wear the softest, most comfortable underwear you'll ever wear, which is MeUndies. Once you try them, you won't want to wear anything else unless you're naked or in a swimsuit. Every pair of MeUndies is sustainably sourced and made from micro-modal, a fabric that's 3 times softer than cotton. If you're used to buying packs of uncomfortable, boring underwear that only come in white, gray, black, tan, nobody cares about those. MeUndies will change the game. They'll change everything. Because MeUndies comes in all kinds of colors and patterns, and they release a new limited edition pattern each month that always sell out. This month is a rainbow confetti print called Celebrate. Try MeUndies today. Go get the Celebrate pattern before they're all gone at MeUndies.com/rundown, and you'll save 20% off of your first pair. 20% off your first pair plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/rundown. Go right now. That's MeUndies.com/rundown. MeUndies.com/rundown.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Schmoedown Rundown. Introducing first, Frankie Stats Janisch, and their co-host, the man of controversy, Mr. Brian "The Duke" Davids. And finally, your host, Aaron Turner. Let's get ready to Schmoedown.
What's going on, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fans? It is episode number 38 of the Schmoedown Rundown, the official after show for the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. It is a huge day today. Collider Collision has dropped. We've all seen it. Hopefully you all have seen it. If not, you may want to stop this because you're going to get spoiled. Joining me today, he's the stat man, Franklin Delano Janisch. What's going on, dude?
That's a good one, Aaron. This has been a hell of a week in the Schmoedown, as well as the rundown. We've done a lot of stuff this week, and hey, Collider Collision, what a way to cap it all off.
Please don't put us over. Also here is Brian Davids, the Duke, the man of controversy. How you feeling, man?
Aaron, Frank, after Spectacular, I coined the phrase, do you believe in miracles? Well, this year, I'm going with, God damn, Murrell's good.
All right, so Jen Sturger was backstage. She was interviewing all the different personalities that showed up to the office, even running up and putting a microphone in Kristian's face while he was eating, as she was instructed to. She talked with Denizen. She talked with Late to the Party. She talked with Jay Washington. She was all over the place. Frank, what stuck out to you during these?
The one that stuck out to me was Ken. Ken's interview was, oh my God. I mean, if you didn't love Ken already, how about that freaking interview with Ken? That was amazing stuff. I know, Brian, you must have loved hearing Ken talk.
I was just taken by the fact that we did not have any blurred faces. It's such a great segment, this pre-show with Jen, when you don't have blurred faces, because I can actually watch what's going on in the background. I love people watching in the background. Yeah, watching Kristian Harloff eat onion dip is interesting, but I like seeing everything going on behind the subject. So Ken, Riley, whatever, I enjoyed the heck out of this pre-show.
Hey, Frank, where were you during all this?
I was doing other things. You know, just seeing how the show is made, how it's born, how it's created. I had already gotten my gourmet sandwich and my chips and my beverage of choice. So
did you eat the salad that Jen Sturger said nobody had.
Jen's completely correct. I don't know who touched that salad, if anybody did, but I certainly didn't, because there's cookies and chips and sandwiches all there. It was very, very nice. And you know, I ate enough for like 3 people, so I think I got my money's worth.
Did you try the mud pie?
No, not at all.
It sounds like Kristian sent you on a beer run during the pre-show. That's what I can gather.
No, he didn't send me on a beer run, but I did bring beer. So I mean, that's just nice being as a guest.
Hey, Stat Lord, we're out of ice. Can you head down to pavilions, please? Thanks.
Yeah, I think they use Ace for that kind of thing. So,
well, a bullet point that I did come across was Jay Washington in the pre-interview there said that he is working on forming an all-female stable, not just Brian and Stacy, but adding 2 more female competitors. Did you guys catch this?
Yeah, that's very interesting because immediately you go, well, you would want to get Rachel, but that's never going to happen because she's with Ken in the Nerds Watch. So then I'm thinking,
Perry.
Who else? I mean, yeah, okay, sure, Perry. But
although they're starting that rivalry with them, never mind.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where else they're going to go unless they're looking towards Charlie Feldman and Eric Ishii. I'm not sure. Yeah, I really don't know where he's going with that. And however, maybe he has thoughts of other women coming into the league that we don't know about yet. So that could be a possibility, I suppose.
It's interesting. It's definitely interesting. I'd like to see that. It's warranted at this point to counteract all the dude stables. So I like it.
Well, we got a lot going on in this episode as we're going to break down each and every match of Collider Collision. We're going to tell you what we thought. We're going to tell you what to expect next. And later on, Frank and Brian got to sit down with the commissioner himself. Kristian Harloff gives his thoughts on not only his match, but all the matches in general, gives some exclusives in there, all kinds of great stuff from the commissioner. So stay tuned for that for sure.
It's a full hour, folks.
There you go. Well, let's jump into it. Let's talk about the first match that kicked us off. Nerds Watch, Rachel Cushing and Kid Knapsack versus Matt Atchity and Gray Drake. Team Rotten Tomatoes, 2 of the most fascinating teams in this league.
The Crusher. She came out, she had all these props. She had mugs, she had alcohol, she had tomatoes. She crushed a tomato. She did the I drink and I know things bit from Game of Thrones, Tyrion Lannister, etc. I enjoyed these bits because they help flesh out the Crusher character, someone we're all greatly invested in. However, this reminded me of something that took place a few months ago. And I think this really threw her off her game early in the match. And I'm going to come back to this point later in this episode, rest assured. So I just want to get this out of the way.
I think I know what you're referencing, but I'll keep it inside.
Thank you.
I liked it too. I like the entrance. I agree with you, Brian. I think maybe it was a little too much, maybe. I mean, of course, we want to see Rachel, get out of her comfort level and try some new things. She said as much on this show that she's not very comfortable with doing that quite yet. So to see her kind of break out and try something new was cool. But yeah, I think it did affect a little bit.
For someone like Baby Carrots is a showman, so there's no added energy if he tries to do something entertaining before a match. For someone like Rachel, who's not accustomed to doing a bit of showmanship, that can use up energy that she's not used to using in these type of scenarios. So it can be more draining for someone who doesn't have those reps built up, is my point. Frank?
Look, I want to be real. I don't know where you think like this energy is zapped from. I'm not really sure in terms of like the showmanship energy is being zapped from knowledge energy of movie trivia. I'm not really sure how that computes. So I don't really buy into the fact that her entrance, squashing the tomato, which was amazing,
that's great.
Zaps some sort of energy out of her movie knowledge. I don't. Well,
it's not necessarily.
I don't subscribe to that kind of thought or feeling. I just think that,
and this is why I said I'm going to come back to this later in the episode because I have an example that proves this point. Boom.
But to speak to your point about exhaustion and why that would be a thing, it's not necessarily her knowledge getting zapped. It's coming out with somebody that, like Rachel, that's she's introverted. She said it herself. So it takes a lot of energy for someone that's not, rah-rah like that to get rah-rah and then come back down. It takes a lot out of you. So that's what I meant. I didn't mean her. She's still very knowledgeable at the end of the day. But
no, I get what you meant. I just don't think it would affect someone like Rachel. I mean, I just don't. I just don't.
I gotcha. That's no problem. That's
and we can just leave it at that. Yeah, for sure.
Well, Frank, I got to get your thoughts on this one because you and I talked about this off air, but Rotten Tomatoes comes out in the dueling nuns get up, Sister Rotten and Sister Tomato. I thought it was going to get old, the whole Jesus shtick, but I think it worked very well. I enjoyed it thoroughly. What about you?
I love this. This is one of my best. This is one of my more favorite bits that has ever happened in the Schmoedown. I'm kind of with you that I thought that it might get old, but they played it perfectly. They didn't harp on it too much. I think they went to it when it felt natural in regards to the first round in terms of play. You know, some of the questions that it happened with. It was hilarious. It was fun. It wasn't overt. It wasn't in your face. And that's what makes Rotten Tomatoes such a great team is between Matt and Gray. They have such a good feel for what's happening and how to play to the audience, play to us. You know, I think they did a really good job. And I don't think it took anything away from their performance because they came out on top. So
fair enough. Brian, what'd you think of the Nun Get Up?
That's the thing that Gray and Atchity are accustomed to this. This is what they do. Gray is as outgoing as it gets. So this is not a new territory for her like it is for Rachel. But the whole nun thing reminded me of 2002 when I dressed up as a father or a priest of some kind at a Halloween party, and a big fight ensued between about 6 of my friends and 6 of some other guy's friends. And I just remember a friend of mine in a French nanny costume getting body slammed on a glass coffee table, yet still winning the fight. So I had flashbacks to that. I had flashbacks to that story. That's all I could think about as I saw them in this costume.
I think we need a separate podcast just for that story.
It's crazy.
In round 1, it was Rotten Tomatoes getting 10 points, the Nerds Watch getting 9 points, Ken getting 5 of those, Rachel getting 4, right. And Matt and Gray split 5-5. So, Brian, what do you think of round 1 here?
Look, I mean, the big story from round 1 was the gaffes by Rachel, quite frankly. A lot of us said that Ken was going to be the squeaky wheel at some point. And while he did not answer every question, you know, no one does, most people don't, Rachel was the one who had these early gaffes. And this, it was going to be an interesting test. I always want to see players tested because she's been in matches where she's been behind or she's lost, but she's never really been tested like this. So I like the fact that she had these early gaffes, these early miscues, and yet she still came back. That is the old cliche. That's the heart of a champion. So even with her miscues, she still showed that she's the real deal.
Yeah, 100% agree. Frank, what did you think of round 1?
If you had told me Rachel would be the weak link of the 4 in that first round, I would have laughed at you. But that's what happened, albeit she missed it by 1 point. Everyone scored 5 points. She scored 4. Not a huge deal, but I would have thought Rachel would have been in that 6-7 point range. I know a lot of people are kind of skeptical on Ken Napzok. I'm not as far down as I think most people out there are. I think he does have a lot of deceptive knowledge. If you take a look back at his run in 2014, he was very competitive and lost in the very weird 2014 Jeopardy round they had back then against Makuga. So he can pull out some questions that you don't think that he would know. Rachel, as we all know, has the goods, and when she can finally harness her nerves and acclimate to the pressures and the atmosphere that she's going to be in going forward, I think we're going to see a very, very strong Rachel, the one that we think we know and want to see. And I think that's very exciting to see from Rachel.
Aaron, real quick, it's worth reminding the audience, Ken has been doing the news for about 5 years now, you know, on the Schmoedown show. He's been working around movies in some capacity. So he knows stuff just being in this space. The real problem areas are stuff from the 80s, stuff that he should have watched, you know, as he was growing up, stuff like Ghostbusters, movies that every kid who grew up in the 80s should have watched and should know. He simply hasn't watched. Another example of that is Gremlins, another famous example.
Yeah, so Ken hasn't seen Ex Machina. Big deal. He still had a great round, and that's all that really matters. Let's jump to round 2. It was the Nerds Watch getting Denzel Washington going 5 of 6 for 9 points. Rotten Tomatoes rolling 80s, 5 of 6 in their own right for 8 points for themselves. We're tied 18-18 after 2. Brian, what do we think of round 2?
Competitive round 2. Denzel was not the ideal category for Nerds Watch, but they powered through it nonetheless, and Rachel started to get her footing at this point. She really bounced back from those early miscues. Like I said, some people, if they had those early misses, they would have checked themselves out of the match. I mean, someone like Roca, for example, someone who's so fiery that they'll let those early misses get to them, and sometimes we'll see that take someone out of a match, but she fought back, and like I said, she proved that she's resilient. And a 9-point turn, that's impressive no matter who you are. Rotten Tomatoes, though, they got some questions in round 2, like the trading places $1 wager that just shows how dangerous this team is. Atchity is a well, and they are as good as any team when they are on their game.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of the Hal Rudnick and Scott Mance match a couple weeks back, where Mance had scored 1 point in the first round. Nerds Watch wasn't nearly that bad, but came back in the second and got 9. So it's all about that turning point in the second and what you can do with it.
The Denzel category for Nerds Watch, I didn't think was that bad of a get for them, because Denzel, he does a lot of great movies that can tend to be in the Oscar caliber, which is right in the wheelhouse of Rachel. If we're just looking at Rachel, I don't want to discount Ken here, but if we're just looking at Rachel, she's probably seen a vast majority of Denzel movies, because as a movie fan, you're going to watch Denzel. And I'm sure Ken has watched his fair share of Denzel movies as well. And one thing I liked watching Nerds Watch work in this second round was the fact that Ken really knows, I feel, how to get Rachel to a place where she can find the answer in which she feels like she knows the answer, but can't quite get there right at that split second. And I feel like he's a good complement to Rachel, especially in the second round. So I enjoyed watching them work. Yeah.
Let me add to that point.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I do think that, Rachel found her footing. She proved that she's resilient, but I think the calming presence of Ken helped get her back to reality a bit. And I like that you reminded me of that point, because you said it earlier in our interview with Kristian, but earlier today, of course. It's interesting, though, of the 6 Denzel-related questions, only one of them was directly about Denzel, his first Oscar nomination, Cry of Freedom. The other 5 were more tangential, excuse me. So Penny Marshall, directors, co-stars. So just because you land on Denzel doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be specifically about Denzel.
But man, this round for me was Rotten Tomatoes all the way. Atchity coming through the clutch. They could have easily gone down and stayed down, but Rotten Tomatoes came right back, tied it up 18-18. It was tight, just as we've seen from Rotten Tomatoes against IGN, top 10. They get in these matchups, man, and they stick in there, and they know how to work well as a team. They don't get rattled under pressure.
By the way, the Miami Back to the Future Part 2 question, interesting sign of things to come. It's just pretty interesting, though, that in the very first match, we had a Back to the Future question that someone struggled with, surprisingly, and yet who knew it would take off from there later in the day. So
in round 3 was the Nerds Watch starting us off. 2 points, Paul Rubens. Rotten Tomatoes comes right back. 2 points, Mark Hamill, Kingsman: The Secret Service, back to the Nerds Watch. +3 for Evangeline Lilly and Real Steel. Back to Rotten Tomatoes. They missed the third, Tyler Hoechlin, Superman himself. Rotten Tomatoes +5 points with Gray Drake with the pull of the match. Christopher Plummer in Beginners. Didn't see that one coming. And unfortunately for the Nerds Watch, they missed their 5-pointer. Which musical was it? And Rotten Tomatoes defeats Nerds Watch 25-23. Brian, your overall thoughts on round 3 and the match in general?
Well, Aaron, I gotta slightly disagree with you. I think the Paul Rubens pull from Ken was the pull of the match, because a lot of us have been saying, me specifically and others, that Ken, in a big moment, would let the team down, and yet he didn't. He pulled off this 2-pointer. This was an unbelievable pull. I love this film, and yet I don't think I knew this answer. So that gave Nerds Watch the lead. When Rachel got her Evangeline Lilly question in Real Steel, I thought they had the match locked up because they had pulled 2 tough questions, but their 5-pointer, perhaps the hardest question of the match, the sure thing, dance movie. So I think the Nerds Watch has a real bone to pick with Miss Movies for pushing this whole dance movies category on the Schmoedown because this cost him.
Absolutely. Where does this dance category come from?
Miss Movies and Bibiani.
Miss Movies, exactly.
Literally.
That's the first thing that came to my mind when I saw this. I said, "You have to be kidding me."
I would like to actually back up my argument for beginners. Gray Drake has done this 2 matches in a row. She pulled out the Jeff Goldblum out of nowhere, even though she knew it. No one else did, but Gray did. And I don't think anybody else was thinking beginners, but Gray got it. So that's 2 times in a row that Gray has come in the clutch. Matt Atchity, great player, but Gray right there when they needed it most. So I'm backing up my point on that one.
Well, Aaron, you had said before this that Gray is kind of the Ken of Rotten Tomatoes. Like they're kind of the mere versions of themselves. Only Gray comes up when she's called upon. And this is another example of that. I just think when it comes to Ken Knapsack and how the 80s are kind of foreign territory for him because he didn't watch a lot of movies. He wasn't allowed to watch a lot of movies. For him to pull this when it was his turn to come up big for the team, to pull such an obscure reference like this, I got to go with that. And I'm just not surprised that Gray pulled a film that had an Oscar nomination 7 years ago. I love Beginners. It's a great film, but the recency of it, the fact that Gray's been working in the space for a while, I'm more surprised by Ken than I am by Gray, I guess. But still, unbelievable moments from both teams. Great match. Rotten Tomatoes, for some reason, they always attract, for the most part, they almost always attract great matches. They're always making things interesting. That's why they're my favorite team.
Here's the thing with Ken, though. He's done a great job of lulling us into this little sleep that he doesn't really know a whole lot. And then in this match, he comes across with probably 2 really great pulls that we don't think he would know. Top of the line stuff, but he gives you real pause for concern when you go against him.
But when he's missing questions like the Nicholas Hoult question or the vacation director, which everybody missed surprisingly, there's going to come a time where that's going to happen when he takes that 2-pointer in a final round. And it didn't happen this time, though.
Yeah, maybe. And however, I think he's very much a much better Makuga, if you will, if you see where I'm going with that.
And also the 5-pointer, Nerds Watch's Big Miss, he probably offered little to no help in that question. It was all on Rachel. You could tell it was all on Rachel. It was tough to watch.
Well, it was really
Rachel in that moment because you could tell it was all on her. You could tell from the moment it was asked that she didn't know it. You could see the pain on her face, even when they asked for more time via the Josh Makuga rule. She was in.
The other point I'm trying to make is that Ken is not so much of a quote-unquote weak player that many people out there may think of him.
I'm not saying he's Ricky Schroeder. I'm not saying that.
God, only Ricky could be Ricky.
I wanted to say one thing first. Let's not make this so much about the Nerds Watch losing, which I know is tough for us because we're big fans of Ken and Rachel. But Rotten Tomatoes, man, #1 contenders, finally getting that shot that has eluded them for so long. A great team. And now we're possibly staring at the Patriots versus Rotten Tomatoes. I'm psyched, man. I'm psyched. I can't even finish the sentence.
Absolutely.
It's coming in August. It's not right around the corner.
Yeah, I'm ready for that.
The one thing I'm looking really forward to is the smack talk between both of these teams because Gray can bring it like no one else can. She can hold court with the likes of Finstock and Snyder and JTE, and actually, he can get some in corny one-liners here and there. So I'm looking forward to what comes of this match eventually.
Well, another quick shout out to Rotten Tomatoes for upping their entrance game, man. Like we haven't really talked about it, but they came out with the Hawaiian shirts for a while, and they were doing that whole thing. And come out Men in Black, they had the Neuralizer. This time they had the nun outfit. So Rotten Tomatoes entrance game is on fire. They're getting into it more, and I like that.
Let me just say, I think 6 Degrees has probably annoyed the rest of the league because now everyone has to one up everybody else's entrances because of 6 Degrees. So now the bar has been raised, and so everybody wants to be known for this. Not everybody, but no one wants to come out with a weak entrance because there are some style points that people can get in. If you simply entertain, you are going to do your team some favors, even if you lose. Hopefully they don't have to spend $600 again.
Yeah.
And don't forget about the influence that the Netflix series Glow is going to have on these people, because as we've heard, a lot of people in the Schmoedown that aren't really wrestling fans have gravitated towards Glow. It's a very successful show, and I think we're going to see a lot of people develop more characters from watching that show. So that's exciting.
All right, so when we wrap up this match, we have Rotten Tomatoes, who scored 17 out of 26 questions for a 65% accuracy rate. They answered nearly 66% of their points available to them. Nerds Watch answered 16 out of 26 for an accuracy rate of 62% and answered 60% of the available points to them. Rotten Tomatoes with the win, 25-23.
Well, guys, one thing we didn't talk about was the fact that there was some kayfabe before this match, as Tom Dagnino locked Emma in a closet, aka John Campia's office, which basically is now a closet. So he locked her in a closet, took her phone, and Grace hijacked the interview responsibilities for the entire day. There was a text sent to Kristian saying, "I am not coming, deal with it." Of course, that was Tom Dagnino doing the texting from Emma's phone. And this was an interesting bit of kayfabe. I actually enjoyed it a great deal. People who have been listening to me for a while will understand why, but I like the change of pace. I like the change up. I like that this kind of sets up a bigger storyline that we've been seeing play out, this rivalry between Emma and Grace. And this is just getting started. I think they've got big things in store between these two. And I enjoyed it. Look, this is why we do these big events, to do some extra stuff with kayfabe. Like it or not, this is something they are trying to expand on and improve on, and getting these reps in just gets them better each and every time. So we'll see how these things evolve, but I like that they are going out of their way to entertain us in more ways than just trivia, because it's all entertaining. I just like seeing different types, especially this case.
Well, it looks like not only did they get to Emma Fyfe, but they got to Jen Sturger as well. So the only option they had left was Grace.
My favorite line of that bit was that Tom Dagnino just said, "What a dummy."
Well, the other bit of kayfabe or setup was the fact that Ken Napzok has challenged JTE to a singles match. And remember, folks, Nerds Watch came into this league with intent to take down the Patriots. That was Ken's goal for the team. Unfortunately, they lost this match. Thus, they are denied that chance to take down the Patriots as a team. So it's clear to me that they had a contingency in place to where Ken could get his vengeance, if you will, against JTE in the event that Nerds Watch lost, which they did. And now it's going to be a singles match. And so I expect there to be some stipulations. And we actually got an exclusive from Kristian, as people will hear later in this episode. And I don't want to say too much about it, but there are things coming in this regard. So stay tuned later.
Can I just say real quick that when I heard this in the post-match interview, Ken taking on JTE, I was like, why didn't I think of that earlier? And I realized I was really caught up in the fact that I wanted Nerds Watch to take on Patriots. But now that Ken mentioned it, hopefully looking forward to that match very, very soon.
Aaron, did you enjoy Ken taking shots at JTE not having a car and JTE's ego being too big for his Camry?
Of course, I love Ken. Ken's a pro. I love Ken's shirt that pro wrestling is real. Love that. I'm a Ken guy, so anything Ken's going to do, I love it. And JTE and Ken have such a fun relationship. I know they're doing the kayfabe bit here, but they are really good friends, and that makes for the best rivalry sometimes, when you can interact back and forth with people you know very well. So I'm excited for this match. I think it'll be fun.
Before we get to the next match, I just want to say that the Nerds Watch lost, yes, and it's a tough loss for Rachel, but sometimes a loss like this is the best thing to happen. I know she's lost Inner Geekdom before, but that's kind of different just because there are so many other factors working against you, especially in a fatal match. But in this case, I think a loss is going to help her. It's helped other players kind of refocus and kind of zero in on some of their weaknesses, go back to the training room, figure things out. And I think this is only going to make her a stronger player. So do not count out Rachel Cushing.
Let's jump to the next match. It is the Inner Geekdom Championship match. Hector Navarro versus the Joker, Jeremy Johns.
I think this is my favorite match of the event, and I did not expect this.
I'm going to agree with you.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you.
Frank disagrees. I bet Frank disagrees.
It's not my favorite, but it's definitely. Look at. I'm actually going to say it's my third favorite.
Wow. Okay.
The Nerds Watch Rotten Tomatoes is my second favorite match of the event, and that's saying a lot because that match and those promos and everything leading up to that match, man, that started with a freaking bang, and I was like, totally on board with this event going forward. Right off the bat for this Intergeekdom match, Hector Navarro is coming in answering 81% correct through all Intergeekdom appearances. Jeremy Johns is answering 68% through all Intergeekdom appearances. Statistically, if you want to look at it this way, Johns is the underdog, albeit being the number one contender to Hector Navarro's championship.
Well, Brian, why don't you take us through round one here?
Round one, question one. Jayla in Star Trek Beyond, Sophia Boutella, friend of the Schmoes Know live show. Nobody got it.
Jayla.
Question two, the other name for Gandalf, Mithrandir or some nonsense. Jeremy the Joker Johns got it. Sorry.
I like that.
I got to call it like I see it.
No, it's fine.
Question three, the Hulk scares what kind of birds in Avengers? Pigeons, 2-1 Jeremy Johns. Question four, Professor Flitwick, Warwick Davis, 3-2 Jeremy Johns. Funny moment with Ken and Kristian in regards to that. And Darth Sidious's master, Darth Plagueis the Wise, 4-3 the Joker. Star Wars, keep an eye on that. Question six, 2002's Green Goblin meets his end by being impaled by his glider. 5-4 Jeremy Johns. Top billing in Superman 1978, Marlon Brando, 6-5 Jeremy Johns. Question 8, Steve Trevor in Wonder Woman, Chris Pine, 7-6 Jeremy Johns. Question 9, who killed Krug in one of the Star Trek movies, one of the 12 Star Trek movies? It was Captain Kirk, 8-7 Jeremy Johns. The Treebeard race, who are they? Blah, 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 9-8 Jeremy Johns. Tony Stark's age when he took over Stark Industries. Nobody got it, surprisingly. The age was 21. Still 98 Jeremy Johns. And the Weasley twins and Harry Potter, Fred and George or something, 10-8 Jeremy Johns. So my one takeaway from this first round was the fact that Hector used 2 of his Josh McCougar rules. I was very concerned that this might come back to haunt him. Aaron, let me get your take about round one.
Well, definitely bookend Iron Man as an answer. Bookend that for later. But Hector, man, like this guy comes in and he's just cool. Like he's just completely cool. Nothing rattles him at all. I got a great laugh out of his answer for the Weasley twins when he said Brian and Dom. Of course, that's a Fast and the Furious reference. I love that very much. But the thing that stuck out to me most in this round was how impressed I was with Jeremy Johns. This guy does it again. And we've all discounted him. Don't lie and say that you're on the Jeremy Johns bandwagon, or you've been with Jeremy Johns since day one, because nobody has. You're a liar. On this, I'm on this guy's side. I think he's great. Kristian has told us for a long time that we underestimate him. He's exactly right. Jeremy came to play, and Hector was right there with him. Great round one.
Frank, were you at all concerned about Hector using 2 Josh McCougar rules in this round?
Yeah, I was. Although at the same time, I appreciated the fact that Hector, the severity of what round one means, and took the time to use his JTE rules. I was very surprised that he missed a Star Trek question right off the bat. He missed an MCU question, which was very surprising. But he's very strong in those categories, I think everyone knows. Jeremy proved, as he has proven in the past 2 showings in the Inner Geekdom, that he knows his stuff, and he brought it in the first round.
Moving to round 2, Jeremy spins Marvel. Question 1, Days of Future Past, Logan injures Kitty Pryde. 12-8, Jeremy Johns. Question 2, Daredevil was blinded by what in 2003's film Chemicals on the Road. 14-8, Jeremy Johns. They gave Hector a little bit of leeway in this case, so keep that in mind. Question 3 in Logan, Charles compares Laura to a lioness. Jeremy guessed this. Big poll from Jeremy, 15-8, Jeremy Johns. Going back, when I just said that Hector got leeway on the Daredevil question, I meant Jeremy, excuse me. Question 4, Deadpool, his old-fashioned way of doing things, 2 swords and max effort. Jeremy goes up 16-8. Pretty good solid turn from Jeremy there. 6-point turn, not dominant, but it's not going to hurt him by any means. So Frank, thoughts on Jeremy's 6-point turn?
Jeremy did what he needed to do in terms of not letting a question go back towards Navarro. That's huge. In an intergeekdom match like this, with someone as skilled as Navarro, you do not want to miss a question and give your opponent an opportunity to steal 1 or 2 points. In this case, his last 2 questions in the second round, he had to go to multiple choice both times. He successfully answered, and that's great because you do not want to give Navarro an opportunity to steal because he could easily have ended up with 9 to 10 points in this round. It would have gotten away from Jeremy at that point. It would have been very difficult for him to come back. Jeremy played a very, very smart and sound second round in a Marvel category that Navarro is very well in.
Aaron, thoughts on Jeremy's turn?
I just really repeat my sentiments from round 1. Jeremy played great. All 4 in this round, all 4 questions correct. I was ready to play. He was right in there. There's really nothing else to say about it.
Well, Hector spun who said it. He quickly passed on that and took DC movies instead. The choice was made for him. Question 1, Air Force One was struck by lightning in another Superman movie, 16-10, Jeremy at that point. Question 2, who was Jonah Hex's villain? Turnbull, 16-12, Jeremy Johns at that point. So again, Hector pulling out Jonah Hex's villain. That's just amazing. Question 3, the arrowhead in Batman Begins, the gift that Bruce and Rachel fought over that Rachel eventually gave back to Bruce, 16-14, Jeremy. And question 4, in one of the greatest polls I've seen on this show from day one, the Green Lantern before Hal Jordan, the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern, Abin Sur, that tied it up 16-16. That's the end of an 8-point round for Hector and a 6-point round for Jeremy. So Hector is reminding everyone the kind of player that he is with amazing polls like Turnbull and Abin Sur. This guy, he may work for DC Movie News, but he can dance like Groot. He is the total package. Aaron, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I felt the same way. This is the game of amazing pulls for Hector, and especially in DC movies, as we'll find out later. But man, Turnbull, I couldn't believe it. Could not believe he pulled that out. Abin Sur, I could kind of believe because that's more geared towards Green Lantern lore just outside the movie, so that doesn't surprise me that he got that. But Hector, once again, man, cool, calm, collected, playing like a champion. Nothing gets this guy rattled. It's pretty incredible.
Navarro proved why he's the champ in this round. The Jonah Hex question, are you kidding me? Like, who remembers Jonah Hex?
Megan Fox.
I mean, I guess that's the reason to remember it, I guess.
Josh Brolin. If
you're like 17. It was a great round by both of these players, and they proved why they belong as the champion and the number 1 contender. And they gave me exactly what I expected, to be honest.
Well, moving to round 3, the betting round, also known as my favorite round. Hector spins, spinner's choice, takes MCU. Jeremy, you could see the points that he was betting on the screen. That's a big no-no. 2 points, of course. And the question was, what did Tony want when he returned from captivity in Iron Man? And the answer that popped in my head immediately was In-N-Out. The answer was actually an American cheeseburger. So I was kind of on the same page, but they probably did not get the rights to In-N-Out, which is understandable if you know that company. I believe it was Burger King in the movie. But Hector bet 3, Jeremy again bet 2, as he showed us. Hector takes the lead 19-18. Well, Aaron, give me your thoughts on Hector taking the lead in round 3 thanks to this Iron Man question.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. Another Iron Man question. That is the theme of this game. An American cheeseburger, the exact right answer. It's kind of rare that you get a question like this, and it's the exact right answer. That's word for word what he says in the movie. Very impressive by both guys here.
Yeah, you would think that one of them would have just said cheeseburger, but
exactly.
not with these two guys. So, Frank, thoughts on the betting round?
Why wouldn't Johns go for 3 points? You have to know that Hector is going to wager 3. Turning point in this match for Jeremy Johns, Navarro did pick the category. You know he's going to go with the full 3 points. You need to stay par with Hector because he is the champ. You can't give him any kind of leeway or any kind of confidence that he's going to run off with it.
Well, round 4, the speed round, one of the most exciting rounds in Schmoedown by far. Question 1, J. Jonah Jameson tied up by Jeremy. Question 2, the scar is in the shape of a lightning bolt, 20-19, Jeremy Jahns. Question 3, R2's opponent in the hollow board, I believe it's called, Chewbacca, was the opponent. 21-19, Jeremy Jahns. Thor's father, Odin. 22-19, Jeremy Jahns. If you take one more step, that was a Sam quote. 23-19, Jeremy Jahns. Jeremy Jahns, folks. Jeremy Jahns had a 5-point round because he is the speed round god. His twitchiness is basically his superpower in the speed round. He crushed the Crusher in the speed round, and he turned out the Nightmare's lights in this particular round. And my God, the guy is so high energy, so fast, so twitchy, and it actually makes him the best player in the game as far as the speed round is concerned. Or he just gets a lot of practice with these buzzers thanks to Awesome-tacular. Aaron, thoughts on speed round?
Well, I know a guy that's also pretty good at the speed round that we'll talk about later, but we'll save that for another time. Yeah, man, if you weren't impressed by Jeremy at this point in the match, how did this not impress you? All of them. Didn't lose any points. Hector gets nothing, man. Nothing at all. Good round for Jeremy.
Look, I know other people are good in this round, but the guy has dominated 2 dominant players in the speed round specifically, and I have to believe that his fast twitch nature has something to do with it. There's just something about Jeremy in these buzzers that agrees with the other. But Frank, thoughts on Jeremy's speed round performance?
His speed round performance is unprecedented. He's the only player to ever answer all 5 correctly. It's masterful.
Like I said, he's a speed round god. Moving to round 5, 23-19, Jeremy the Joker Jahns. It's an interesting match. Hector Navarro's 2-pointer, Star-Lord's Walkman, his Sony Walkman. 23-21, Jeremy, 2-point lead. Hector Navarro's 3-pointer, Ryan Reynolds was in Blade Trinity. 24-23, Hector Navarro takes the lead. Jeremy Jahns gets his 2-pointer, and this was the Millennium Falcon, had to float with the trash to evade the Star Destroyer pre-Cloud City. This was an Empire Strikes Back question. And I got to say, this is an example of a question to where if it was worded a bit differently, Jeremy would have got the answer. He knows Star Wars. We'll see an example of this later in the episode, but we always have to remind people that the players cannot see the questions like we can. So if the wording is a bit weird, that can throw their thinking out of whack, even when they know the answer, like in this case. So this was a huge missed opportunity for the Joker. Well, moving to Jeremy's 3-pointer, Lex Luthor's assistant, Miss Tessmacher. Jeremy takes the lead back 26-24. Then Hector Navarro gets his 5-pointer, which probably may have been, well, it's up there. I was going to say it was the pull of the match, but he had too many great pulls to say it was the pull of the match, but it was huge because gave him a 29-26 lead. Harry Lennox, General Swanwick in Man of Steel. I actually confused Harry Lennox for Chris Maloney's character when answering this question to myself. So again, another example of how masterful Hector the Nightmare Navarro is. And then one of the most significant, most memorable missed answers, Jeremy Jahns scores and soundtracks for his 5-pointer. What 80s rock song opened Iron Man? We all, or most of us know it, AC/DC Back in Black. And this was just painful to watch. This is one of the most popular rock anthems ever. And if you just kind of skim these songs in your head, big songs like this, the lyrics just might come to you. And it seems like he was about to do that, but the song name did not germinate for Jeremy Jahns. So Hector is funny, wins. Give me your reactions.
He hummed the tune. He was humming Back in Black.
Exactly.
But just could not put it together. I'm ready to say that Harry Lennox is the pull of Collision.
Okay.
I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. I, too, Brian, confused Chris Maloney as well. I was like, oh, man, this could go either way. Another confusing point that Hector could have gone either way on to me was Ryan Reynolds in Blade Trinity, because it said, what other movie did he have a starring role in? It was a Marvel film. Of course, there was Deadpool. I believe that was excluded.
Right.
But he also played Deadpool in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Now, he did not have top billing, and it's the same character, but that could have easily been confused. But Blade Trinity, that's another great pull.
Yeah, Aaron, you bring up a great point. That was the one that Blade Trinity I didn't think of. It was the X-Men Origin one that was kind of immediately jumped into my head. Hector Navarro had some amazing pulls in this match. Jeremy Johns, look at in the same boat in terms of I know a lot of songs, but I just don't know the names of them. I think I've said it here before on the podcast or even off the air. I'm not sure. I know a lot of songs, like when I hear them, like, oh yeah, I've heard that. But I don't know the names of the song. So when it comes to trivia, I'd be useless. And I think that's kind of what happened to Johns. And it's unfortunate because he had Hector Navarro dead to rights. Hector Navarro felt it as well. And Hector Navarro is damn lucky that he won this match because Jeremy Johns, for all intents and purposes, he pretty much lost it. And Hector Navarro didn't really win it. And I hate to say that because I'm a big fan of Hector Navarro and I believe in Hector Navarro. But
well, Frank and I talked about this with Kristian, but I want to say it to you, Aaron. I like identifying themes in the Schmoedown or trends as well as themes. And it seemed like this event had more soundtrack questions than we've really ever had before. It seems like we usually get score questions, but not a lot of soundtrack questions, yet Collision probably had more soundtrack questions ever compared to the previous however many matches combined.
Yeah, I think it's also
I don't want to go out on a limb and say that for certain, but it felt like we had more soundtrack questions than ever.
I think it's important to discern the difference between a score and a soundtrack because a soundtrack is more of a music listing rather than a score is something the composer writes for the movie. So I don't want people to get confused by when we say that.
Right. There is a distinction, but Aaron, did you sense this as well? Did you notice this as well?
I didn't really think about it until you just brought it up, but yeah, I think you're exactly right. There were a lot of soundtrack questions as opposed to the regular score. I don't blame Jeremy for missing it because it's one song in a movie that has a lot of popular songs. I'm not gonna go against the guy for missing it. To me, it was a tough question. I didn't think the AC/DC deal kicked in until Iron Man 2 because that whole soundtrack is AC/DC. But it's a tough loss. I think I'm actually going to disagree with you, Frank. I don't think that Hector held on to anything. I think with the Harry Lennox and the Ryan Reynolds questions combined, Hector earned this victory for sure. I don't think that Jeremy lost it. I think Hector took it from him.
I can see that, yeah. But I think at the end, Jeremy, he let it go through his fingers there. And
had Hector guessed, maybe I would see it your way, but he didn't guess. He knew.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. I completely see your point there. Yeah.
Okay. It's worth pointing out that even if the Star Wars question was worded in a way that led to Jeremy getting it right, it still would not have given him the lead or a tie. He still would have been down 1, so he needed that 5-pointer. Ultimately, Frank, let's get your stat cap before we get into the post-match.
Yeah, Hector Navarro answered 16 out of 20 questions asked to him for 80% accuracy. He earned 88% of the points available to him. Jeremy Johns, this is where he outperformed Hector Navarro. He answered 21 out of 25 questions asked to him for an 84% accuracy rate, where he earned 70% of the points available to him. So, again, you may answer more questions, but it comes down to those 5-pointers in that third round, and that's what did it for Navarro to earn the victory.
Well, in the Grace view, RB3 interrupted. Well, he didn't interrupt. He came out because he's part of the Young Bucks. Again, we've had so little Young Bucks time that I almost forgot that they were in a stable together. Excuse me. But RB3 had a very quick point about real representation. So I just want to say, well played, Robert. Well played. He's fresh off giving his Star Wars belt to Ken Knapsack. RB3 is a great guy. The guy put together a Star Wars belt for Ken. As if RB3 wasn't the most beloved person in this enterprise, he makes a Star Wars belt for Ken Knapsack. It just makes my heart melt. But ultimately, he was there to encourage his stablemate to accept Coy Jean-Giro's challenge. And Hector accepts it, but he's not phased. Why would he be phased? He's answering 99% of the questions accurately. So we're going to see Hector and Coy. Aaron, thoughts on Hector and Coy?
Marvel versus DC. I like it. Classic matchup. Very nice. Right now, if I had to pick a winner, I'm picking Hector. I just think the way that he goes into it, cool, calm, collected. You can't face the guy, man. He may drink and know things at this point because the guy was unflappable in this match.
By the way, I think I said Hector previously works for DC Movie News. I meant DC All Access. You guys know what I meant. Don't correct me.
I'm a fan of Hector, and that's an easy W for Navarro. I believe Hector and everything he just said about Coy in his post-match. Coy still has a lot to prove despite winning a Fatal 5-Way. And I think a lot of people out there would agree because he got away with one against Kalinowski.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would definitely take Navarro hands down above just about anybody, especially Coy. Sorry, Coy.
Ultimately, I want Coy to make it a good match. That way the Inner Geekdom League becomes even stronger so that when the Inner Geekdom match gets its official match every week in early August, we've got a stacked league, which we kind of already do. But Jeremy, in his interview, acknowledged the fact that he crushed Harry Potter. He's been doing a lot of Harry Potter rewatches lately. And once again, he is the speed round god as far as quickness and accuracy. Yes, there are other good people in the speed round, but the guy is gifted because of his twitchiness. I will keep saying this until people believe me. I don't care how many times I have to say it. It's true. But impressive showing, even though it didn't quite go his way. So any final thoughts before we move on?
I'm getting very, very excited for the Inner Geekdom because going into this, I really felt like Hector Navarro was really the only true force to be reckoned with. But Jeremy, given this performance and his past two performances, has shown that he can really challenge anybody in the Inner Geekdom. And I know we still have a lot to see from Rachel. We still have a lot to see from Kalinowski. But here's the thing, guys. Robert Meyer Burnett, I know this guy may be busy and he might use it as an excuse, and it may be real. It may be not. It might not be. I don't care. Here's the thing. He's got some real competition between Jeremy Johns, Kalinowski, Rachel Cushing. The Inner Geekdom is getting heated. As young as a league as it is, we got a good handful of names here.
Aaron, did you catch a quick point that Kristian made that Jeremy might be taking a break from competition? Did you catch that?
I did hear him say that. Jeremy's got a lot on his plate, man. He's got Awesome Tackle. He's got some other things that he's trying to do, so it doesn't surprise me that he would take a step back. My first takeaway from this match is, could you ask for two better matches to start off this card? It started off hot, man. That team match was great. This match was great, our favorite of the card, Brian. It lived up to the hype. I didn't know what we were going to get. I didn't know if it was going to be a blowout one way or the other because you kind of never really know what you're going to get with Inner Geekdom. But I think this was a fantastic match. Hats off to both guys. I want to see a rematch. I think that'd be great.
Absolutely agree.
We interrupt this amazing episode of the Schmoedown Rundown to bring you this news. Do you like what you've heard so far? Do you like the Schmoedown Rundown? And of course, why wouldn't you? Do us a favor. If you are listening on iTunes, please rate and review the show along with all the other shows on the Schmoes Know feed. If you are watching via YouTube on the SK Plus channel, be sure to like and leave a comment. We would really appreciate that, and it will help out all the other shows on the channel, such as Outlaw Nation with John Roca, The Harloff Podcast with Kristian Harloff, The Wenger Show, among the rest of the shows on the channel. Something new for everybody every single day, so definitely check out the SK Plus feed and the Schmoes Know iTunes feed. And now back to the best looking host on the channel, Aaron Turner. All right, guys, we're back, and now we're talking the number one contenders match for the Movie Trivia Schmoedown Championship. It was the commissioner, Kristian Harloff, versus the Snyder, one half of the team champions, Mr. Jeff Snyder. All right, well, let's jump to round one quickly before anything.
Aaron, don't skip past the best segment on this show.
Here we go.
Oh, we love the book.
We've got a fresh, where in the world is Booker T?
Tell me where in the world is
Booker T!
And Brian, where was Booker T?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Aaron, because Booker T was back at the Fuddruckers studio where he does his show. But I think this was a new shot that we haven't seen before. Booker T picked the commish, though, since he knows Vince McMahon.
Well, let's talk about round one. It was both the commissioner and Jeff Snyder going 5 for 8, both getting 5 points in the round. It wasn't quite what I had thought it was going to be. I thought it was a little slow going. Brian, what did you think of round one?
Well, this was a pretty ugly round one for a lot of reasons. I mean, E.T.'s friend, I mean, there were questions that should have been answered that weren't, but the big takeaway, as good as it gets, it wasn't written on Kristian's board in its entirety. Jeff thought about challenging, but he didn't. I felt he should have. I mean, you're in a number one contenders match. Why not? We'll come back to this, of course, but I just want to make a quick point. I love how Jeff Snyder is holding out his board like a football player, like an offensive football player, taunting the defense, or like when Jordan used to palm the basketball and he'd tease players by extending his arm and just waving the ball around. I love how Jeff, when he's confident, will just extend that board as far out as possible. So
no, I think he should. I think he should lose some fans for that. I really think he should. It's just poor sportsmanship. You know.
So the opponent cannot see the answers or the 2-pointer like in Jeremy Johns' betting round case. But Aaron, thoughts on round one?
I actually kind of likened it to a poker player. Like when they're getting ready to turn over their hand to take all your money, they kind of hold it out to the side when they know they've got you. I kind of thought that's what Jeff was going for. Probably not.
That too.
But that's just kind of what I read into it. E.T. and Dumb and Dumber. Ouch and ouch. Couldn't believe the Dumb and Dumber miss. I was very surprised that Jeff did not get Elliot from E.T. It stunk.
The crowd was going crazy during this match for so many reasons. My God, Frank, what was it like being there for this match?
Yeah, there's a lot of oh my God moments in the audience. The Harloff not knowing the 2001 Space Odyssey, the monolith question. Yeah. Dude, that's like a Kubrick Kubrick 101, dude. Like, wow, I'm surprised.
Well, for he being such a big fan of Christopher Nolan and actually liking Interstellar quite a bit, kind of a bad miss there.
Yeah. There's a lot of similarities in there. Snyder missing the ET question to Elliot, like, dude, what? And the other thing was Snyder thinking that he could get in Harloff's head. You saw it in the video. Snyder pointed to Dagnino, tapping his head, saying, I'm trying to get in his head. I'm trying to get in his head. And that's the kind of game Snyder / the Patriots / the Lions Den, that's the kind of game they play.
This match illustrated why it's helpful to have a stable. There are a variety of reasons why it's sometimes helpful to have a stable, because they can back you up if you're in a jam, to where if you didn't challenge or something to that effect, they will signal to you to challenge.
Brian, would you agree that this match is a great case study for a lot of things in the Schmoedown to work on, to look at?
Yes, indeed.
I mean,
yes,
this match, this one will be studied, should be studied as we'll go forward. It is quite a match in a lot of ways.
Aaron, do you share this sentiment, though, that this match proved why stables might be important for some people? Because A, they can back you up if you miss a challenge. They'll tell you to challenge if you missed a challenge back, and you can kind of go back and challenge things, as we've seen from this match. But furthermore, your stable can attempt to get in the head of your opponent by talking smack to them. So do you find value or more value in stables after this match?
Yeah, I do now, for sure. Absolutely. It's different when you have somebody on the sideline that's not under the lights, that's feeling the pressure. Sure, they're feeling the pressure for you as your stablemate, but they're not under those lights, they're not under the question pressure. So it's kind of a fresh perspective.
Right.
Then Tom was right there. He was right in Jeff's ear, telling him, things that we'll get to later on. But yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was of the role of the manager in this particular league was going to be as more of a mouthpiece or something like that. But Tom really showed that you need someone in your corner for these high pressure situations.
And this goes back to that point I mentioned last week, I believe. as far as how focused Tom Dagnino is when he's watching matches. And this was in regards to team action and late to the party that I made this point. This wasn't even one of his players, but he was dead set and focused on the game action. So when his guy was up to bat, of course he was going to be focused for his guy, Snyder. And of course he was going to do anything he could to give him some sort of competitive advantage. And it might have got him an extra 2 points or so.
And let me go real quick to the fact that this happened with the top 10 Patriots match. I mean, Dagnino, he's pacing back and forth. He's just not pacing back and forth for theatric sakes. He's really invested in this match, the sidelines, like a coach, and he's listening to everything. He goes, he's questioning everything. He's thinking, hey, what can we do here? Is this question a little murky? Because this question had been accepted, and he's doing all these things for a player like Snyder and under immense lights and pressure that he necessarily couldn't process in the time. And there is his manager, Tom Dagnino, whether you like him or not, of the Lions then, he's there supporting Snyder and going, you know what? Look it, you may have thought of this, but I'm going to bring this to your attention.
Yeah.
What about this? And then they confer and they go, okay, I want to challenge. So I think we really saw for the first time ever what managers can do in this league. And I think it's going to open a lot of eyes and a lot of doors for future and potential managers of stables going forward. And I think it's a great.
I like the sports analogy to a head coach. I really like that sports analogy to a head coach because it's perfect. It really is. And the thing is, though, it just stands out in this match because Tom was literally doing anything he could to help Snyder. Tom did not have to do much in Patriots and bottom 10 because the Patriots waxed
in the
bottom 10 with ease. So Tom did not have to do much to help out Team Patriots.
Quick note that I kind of skipped over. We did have a commentary switch here. We had Ken and Campia on the mic.
Yeah.
Yes, let's get to round two, where Kristian Harloff spun and got fantasy sci-fi. I was actually surprised that he stuck with it for reasons that I'm not really sure of. He goes 3 of 4 for 6 points. Jeff Snyder, unfortunately, at the time we thought, rolls opponent's choice, and Kristian kind of played it off like he was going to give Jeff something he might want for a challenge, but ends up giving him scores and soundtracks, completely backfires on him as Jeff gets 4 of 4 for 6 points. No steals in this round, but the big takeaway from this round is the ego and Peter Quill question that got everybody confused. It ended up being a challenge. The question was thrown out completely. After the challenge, comes back in with a new one. Jeff gets 1 point off of that question. And after round two, we are tied 11-11. Brian, what'd you think of this?
Aaron, I'm sorry, real quick. I just want to cut off Brian real quick. You said you were a little surprised that Harloff was with fantasy sci-fi. Is that correct?
I was surprised. I didn't think it was one of his strengths.
Okay, well, I just want to point out that in the history of the Schmoedown for Harloff, he is 22 of 28 in the fantasy sci-fi category. That's nearly 79%.
Well, Frank, that's why you're the stat guy and I'm the host.
I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Okay,
yeah, I was gonna say without stats that I've always known Kristian to be a fantasy sci-fi fan. I wasn't gonna drop any stats, but I was not
something GTE might say after hearing something beforehand. I'm just saying.
I was not surprised. I was not surprised that he took it. Is the point? So he's seen Ex Machina. So as long as you've seen Ex Machina, you know fantasy sci-fi. Now, question one, Smog's voice, Cumberbatch. It's a relatively easy question, but the Logan's Run question, the Jeebs in Men in Black question, are two of the best pulls of the day from Kristian Harloff. And he explained to us how he got the Logan's Run question in the interview. I won't say it here. I'm still shocked that he had Tony Shalhoub on the mind. Still, who knows when was the last time we've all seen Men in Black, but really impressive pulls there. The opponent's choice thing, this is the tricky thing, because as the post-match indicates, there was another first spin that Kristian had Jeff respin, and thus landing on opponent's choice. So a lot of controversy has kicked up because of what was said in the post-match. I'm going to save the majority of my commentary until we get to the post-match, but there was controversy in round one. There's controversy in round two in a couple ways. And Aaron, you mentioned it, the Guardians of the Galaxy question. the issue is this. For some of you, I've seen a lot of people that are just not understanding what the issue was. So to explain the issue, the song was really about Peter's mother and Ego. However, Ego compared himself and Peter to the sailor mentioned in the song. So the omission of the mother was the major issue, as pointed out by one Jay Washington, I'm told. So surprisingly, it was not a stablemate. It was Jay Washington who brought this to the attention of someone in the Lion's Den. Thus, that's why we got this late challenge. That's why this challenge came in at such a weird point. There was no real setup for it. It just came out of nowhere. And it worked out, though. Jeff got another point thanks to that James Cameron True Lies question.
Yeah, as a person being there watching this Guardians of the Galaxy fiasco, if you will, take place, Jay Washington was very vocal in terms of his opinion. What his opinion was, I could not tell you. I cannot tell you exactly what it was. I knew that Mark Andreyka was very vocal about how he felt about the question as well. And again, I don't know which way he was leaning. Certainly you could speculate if he'd like to, but I'm not going to do that because I honestly just don't know. And I'll tell you this, Kristian was just sitting there waiting for the decision to be made. He wasn't saying anything. He wasn't petitioning one way or the other. He was just saying, hey, whatever happens, happens.
Look, when he's sitting in that chair, he has to behave like a player. He cannot over-engage himself like a commissioner because in that seat, he's just a player at that point.
Yeah.
Yes, he's also the founder commissioner, but in that moment, he's a player. So I'm glad to hear that he stayed out of this particular argument.
Oh, yeah. I did not once see him converse with anybody. Riley or Makuga or whoever was in the judge's table. He just sat there and said, hey, figure it out.
All right, guys. So we got to round 3 here. 11-11 tie, just as we kind of thought it would be. Jeff Snyder getting 2 points with Road to Perdition. Kick it back to the commissioner. 2 points in one of the biggest layups I've ever seen in my life.
I'd say.
Bring it on. Cheerleading was the score.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. We go back to Jeff Snyder, who misses his 3-point question. Another controversial question. A flute in Kill Bill. We go back to the commissioner. Gets 3 points for Brigitte Nielsen in Cobra. We jump back to Jeff Snyder. Getting the 5-pointer, Robert De Niro and Marlon Brando, both winning Oscars, playing the same character, Vito Corleone, in The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2, respectively. We jump back to the commissioner for the win. Could he pull it off? Jerry Goldsmith in L.A. Confidential, the composer, scores and soundtracks, and the commissioner defeats Jeff Snyder 21-18. Brian, what do you think about this outcome here?
So the wind instrument controversy. This goes back to that point that I made in regards to Jeremy, where the question, if it's worded a certain way, it can throw your thinking off of what your answer normally would have been. So you may think that you know the answer, but the wording as you hear it causes you to second guess. It causes doubt to come into the equation. And when you're not able to see the question, the wording becomes ever so important. So why they didn't just say woodwind instrument, I'll never know. There are 2 families of wind instruments, brass and woodwind. And while I think the right call was made, I still think there's a valid case to overturn and just get rid of this question because it was worded in such a way to where it can take you down the wrong path by being so general and vague when you can just say woodwind and still not give away the answer. Saying woodwind does not specify flute. No way in hell. Woodwind is his own subgenre, subcategory of the overall category, wind instruments. I understand Jeff's gripe. We saw an issue like this with Clark and that lead actor, lead character question controversy. You can be a lead character, you can be a lead actor. Again, the wording is so important, and so many times people overlook that fact. But it's just, again, every round has had controversy, and in a number 1 contenders match, there shouldn't be this much controversy. More on this later.
Yeah, I mean, you realize we are arguing over a flute. Like, it's kind of crazy, but it's like they took a step forward by overturning the challenge with Snyder and throwing the question out. And then we kind of have the same thing here, and they just leave it in. It's like, well, why wasn't this question thrown out also? Like, it just, I don't know, that bothered me. I think they made the right call by throwing out the Guardians of the Galaxy question, but they made the wrong call by not throwing this one out. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I know that Chris Skaliski has other thoughts, and I feel bad for the guy because he got kind of dumped on, but we'll get to that later. And it's not his fault, guys. It's really not. It's just, you can't have this stuff in a number one contenders match. You can't have it in a championship match. This should not have been here. It should have been taken out and replaced. What about you, Frank? What do you think?
There's something to be said about the wording of questions, for sure. I don't think anybody's going to dispute that sometimes questions aren't worded in a way that make it clear what kind of answer we're looking for. This Tarantino question, look, it's been touted that Snyder has been a pretty good Tarantino fanatic, right? For him to not know that instrument was a flute, not a harmonica, which is completely just the opposite thing, kind of baffles me that he could not correct the league, if you will, that actually, you know, it's a woodwind instrument and it's a flute, blah, 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 this, all this and that, you know. Although, I mean,
Jeremy, same case with Jeremy. Are you saying that Jeremy did not know that answer? The wording threw Jeremy off. If this question said woodwind and not wind instrument, I have a very strong feeling that Jeff would have gotten it right.
Which question are you referring to for Jeremy?
The Star Wars trash Star Destroyer hiding amongst the trash before Cloud City.
I think if Jeremy actually listened to the question, he could have got it. If he had heard Cloud City, he would know that it's...
No, he did hear Cloud City. The question was worded in a way that he did not understand.
If he attention to the wording of the question and said Cloud City, he would know that there's no Death Star involved with Cloud City / Empire Strikes Back.
Before we get to the post-match, Frank, do you have any stat caps you'd like to give us?
Yeah, so as we round out the end of this match here, match recap, Harloff was 11 of 15. He answered 11 correct out of 15 questions asked to him for a 73% accuracy rate. He earned 81% of the points available to him for 21 points total. Snyder was 11 of 16 questions for a 67% accuracy rate. In turn, he earned 67% of the points available to him. That's 18 points total, so he lost 21 to 18. But here's the thing I want to point out about Kristian Harloff, because he's actually on a historic run in terms of his win streak. He has won 3 in a row. He's now won 4 in a row. Of the people that have won 3 games in a row, there's only been 9 people, including Harloff. Well, I'm sorry, 8 people, including Harloff. Riley is the only competitor to do it twice. I mentioned that in our preview. Harloff, however, through his 3-game winning streak, previous 3-game winning streak, he has the 3rd best 3-game winning streak, answering 77.5% correct. He is just behind Murrell's 3-game winning streak, in which he won 5 straight, and he's behind Clark Wolf, who won 3, who answered 79.49%. Now, Kristian Harloff, he is now on a 4-game winning streak. He is only one of 5 people in the entire history of the Schmoedown to have a 4-game winning streak. His winning streak is 3rd best amongst 4-game winning streaks. He is answering 82.89%.
Jesus Christ.
That is a ridiculous rate. If he beats Dan Murrell for the title, he will become the 3rd player ever to have a 5-game winning streak. Only Dan Murrell and Mark Riley have had 5-game winning streaks.
And he admits he's gotten very lucky. He admitted in the Grace feed that he's gotten very lucky.
There's a lot of luck involved in these winning streaks, for sure.
And I love how he said, though, that he wanted to face John Roca. He wanted Harloff Roca too, which, damn it, it would have been interesting to see another version of that, but that's not the case. And he also described what he was thinking in that final question, where it seemed like at first he didn't know it, but he was fearing the comments, hence the damn it, oh God. Thus, Jerry Goldsmith is going to play for the title. Aaron, thoughts on?
Yeah, actually, Harloff has the best 4-game winning streak. That's my bad. He has 82.89%. The second best is Dan Murrell at 79.66% when he answered when he was on a 4-game win streak, which was ultimately a 5-game win streak. But then in those 4 games, he answered 79.66%.
Well, guys, in this post-match interview, there's a lot to unpack here. You know, Kristian came up, he talked to Grace. He was very, hey, I got lucky and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, we can't beat around it. Mark Andreyko coming in hot, man, with the hottest takes I think we've ever heard. Mark Andreyko is a guy that I've been waiting to get more exposure in the sense of talking. Because I've seen him in other things where he's very well spoken. And this was his time. He even said it himself. He's like, I'm going to play heel here. And he blistered the league. And Brian, tell me what you thought of it.
I got several messages from people saying that Andreyko pulled a Brian Davids. He pulled a me. And as self-congratulatory, as tooting my own horn as that sounds, I agree, because Andreyko said, for the most part, what I've been saying for a while now, and it's that we need consistency in regards to these rules. IGN, in hindsight, was screwed because so much leeway has been allowed since then, while the exactness they were held to hasn't been required of other players. I made a huge point then that moment would become a key turning point for the league as far as what kind of league they want to be. The precedent could have been set at that very moment to keep things to the letter. Instead, they went back to leeway per years past, and yet IGN was the exception to the rule, even though their question never asked for a direct quote from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So everybody else is getting leeway, and yet there's exactness in some cases, leeway in others. And there are so many examples, even in this event, where the announcers are saying, yeah, we'll give you that. So I don't even have to list examples because we all know there's been too much leeway. By the way, take a look at JTE during this post-match. He's doing some funny stuff.
He is. No, you're right, he is.
Well, to quote the Joker in The Dark Knight, there's plenty of room for aggressive expansion. So let's jump.
That's one of my favorite scenes. Oh, man.
Thank you very much. Let's jump to the championship match. The reason that we're here, the reason that we watched the Collision. It's the biggest match in Collider history. Triple threat. The champion, Mark Riley, versus Dangerous Dan Murrell, former champ, versus the Outlaw John Roca, another former champion. 3 champions more or less going at it. Brian, start us off. Intros, promos. What'd you take away immediately?
Well, The Rock cut a promo with Roca. This is something that we heard about somewhat. They kind of held back the part about the promo. They showed us the trailer interview in regards to Baywatch. They didn't really advertise the fact that The Rock cut a promo. Some of us heard about it, but it wasn't quite advertised. They wanted it to be a surprise for Collision. And I just want to say that I wish I could have been a fly on the wall just to see The Rock's publicists freaking out when Dwayne was dropping F-bombs in regards to some random guy with a cowboy hat and his movie trivia league. I just wish I could have been there.
Yeah, it was an interesting promo from The Rock for sure. The first thing I noticed before this match started was not the Lions Inn, excuse me, that was disrespectful. I apologize. The 3 horse persons huddled up. No Robert, Meyer, Burnett. Again. So we have 3 horse persons.
Yeah.
What do I often say? Being right never gets old.
Well, something else I want to point out. A really nice video package was done for this match. I think it was one of the best they've ever done, if not the best.
Well, I just want to say, yeah, you're right, Aaron. I think all the video packages in general were really, really well done. And you're right, this one is probably one of the best.
Yeah, we watch all of this footage. We're not people who skip over the promo packages.
That's right, Brian.
Well, it is the championship match, so you know what that means. We got to find out where Booker T was.
Tell me where in the world is
Booker T!
you guys, Booker T was back at Fuddruckers Studio.
I like to think of it as Fuddrucker Ranch.
But guess who he picked? Take a guess.
He picked the Outlaw, I believe.
The Outlaw. He picked the Outlaw. I don't know why I asked you to take a guess when we all watched the match.
I don't know.
What was I thinking?
We're like, yeah, we know.
All right.
But
well,
yeah,
answer me this question. Was this your favorite Booker T, Where in the World is Booker T promo segment? Tell me it was.
Yeah, I mean, he had notes. He knew this was a big event for the Schmoedown, and he came prepared. So I like that he would reference his notes. And look, Booker T is doing so much for the reputation of this program, and people will understand this one day. It's all building. It's all sprouting. It's germinating. You'll see.
5-time WCW champion was on fire. What'd you think, Frank?
We had Booker T and The Rock. Think about that, people.
Yeah.
Booker T and The Rock.
I love this Booker T prediction because he was so amped up. I loved it, and it went on and on and on, and I could not get enough of Booker T's energy. Guy was on fire. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Well, can I get to round one?
Absolutely.
The entrances were pretty good. I mean, I think Yodi 1 Kenobi takes the cake because it had, I don't know, I felt it was the most.
Really?
Was it as good as a Karate Kid? No. But I wasn't a fan of the Natasha Wonder Woman thing. I thought that was kind of
shame on
I thought
you.
that was kind of lame. They didn't add any visual effects. Aaron must have been sick this week. But yeah, I was expecting that for some reason. Murrell, all business. I'm going to come back to this. He was all business, came out determined. And they were teasing Murrell's all business attitude throughout the match. He had a little bit of kayfabe in between matches where Riley was getting some onion dip and Murrell was just staring at Riley's belt, and they had a little moment together. I thought all of those in between kayfabe scenes were great. But Murrell was all business. But I think I favor Yodi 1 Kenobi. Regardless, round one, Roca takes off the cowboy hat and pulls out the blindfold. The difference is, though, when he last pulled out the blindfold against Harloff in the best match of the Schmoedown, there were no whiteboards when he did it last. He did not have to write the answers down. So that presented a problem that I'm not sure anyone anticipated. However, it was a nice callback to a great match. So, question one, Fred and Big Hero 6, TJ Miller, 1-1-1. I'm not going to say 1-1-1 or 2-2-2. I'm just going to say tied. Question two, this is the end, all tied up again. Question three, bugging out from Do the Right Thing. Murrell did not get that one. Surprisingly, Murrell missed that question.
Can we talk about that real quick?
Sure.
Murrell didn't get it. I want to know what your initial thoughts were when Murrell was the first to miss of these three, because they're the three of the best of all time. I don't think anyone can argue that. However you want to rank them, that's fine, whatever. But they're the top three. Murrell missed it. What did you guys think?
Wasn't phased at all. I wasn't phased at all. My confidence in him did not change whatsoever.
Yeah, I was fine with it.
Okay, I'm just wondering because it was always going to be a tight match.
In the crowd, were people like, "Whoa"? Were people?
Yeah. Honestly, because I don't think anyone's really expecting Murrell to miss anything. So when he does miss something, it's always a surprise.
Well, question four, one of Aaron Turner's favorite films, Jurassic World. Everybody got it. Question five, another one of Aaron Turner's favorite films, Hostel. Everybody got it. Question six, a film I enjoy since everyone had to give their opinion on it, Pacific Rim. Everybody got it. Question seven, Murrell gained some ground here with the Serpico director, Sidney Lumet. And question eight, Hair Smells Like Cinnamon was from Anchorman. Murrell got it. Riley didn't. Roca got it. So at the end of round one, Murrell goes 7 of 8. Riley goes 6 of 8. Roca goes 7 of 8. So, Aaron, give me your round one thoughts, if any.
Well, I share the opinions of Dan Murrell and John Roca. I also do not care for Jurassic World at all. I think it's terrible. Just wanted to jump in there. I actually really do like Hostel. So you're kind of half and half on that, Brian. But
you love your torture porn.
Hey, what can I say? I like Eli Roth, dare I say.
You love BDSM as well.
Oh, jeez. Oh, here we go.
All right. Well, back to the match. Yeah, Dan came out. He missed that first one early. And then Roca, I was actually surprised that Roca got 7 of 8. I was expecting him to drop off for some reason. I didn't think it would be the person that ended up dropping off a little bit in this match was going to be that person. I thought it would be Roca. I thought the pressure would get to him, but he's hanging tight with Dan Murrell here.
So close first round. Frank, any additional thoughts before round 2?
I was feeling good about Riley. He got the first 6 right, and then he dropped the final 2, and that's when it dawned on me, not going to go well because Murrell got those last 2 right. Roca was 1 of 2 in those last 2, and he had when he got to that 7th question, he was 7 of 7. Had an opportunity of all 3 to get all 8 right at that point with the last 8th question. I think you kind of saw how the match was going to go. If you go ahead and look back at it, you look at Murrell. Yeah, he had a hiccup, but he recovered very quickly in his final questions. Roca, unfortunately, didn't get that 8th question. Riley got the final 2 wrong, and I think that's pretty much how it played out for the rest of the match.
This follows up a point or a question that I asked Riley during our interview this week. I asked him, do you know as early as round 1 if it's your night or not? And I could tell from the looks of things that it wasn't his night, just from the look of round 1, just by the way things felt. It's just something I've noticed with Riley, though, before. In his matches, I can often tell when it's going to be his night or not, and it's usually something you see early. And well, getting to round 2 again, it's 7-6-7. Riley's down by 1. Dan Murrell spun horror thriller, and because of Riley, he decided to spin again. He landed spinner's choice as only Dan Murrell would. He selected comic book movies. Question 1, he got Loki's Army and the Avengers, 2 points. Question 2, we got Magneto hiding in Poland, but he had to go multiple choice and only got 1. He got question 3, Dane DeHaan as the Green Goblin in Aaron Turner's favorite Spider-Man film, Amazing Spider-Man 2. And one of the polls of the match, one of the polls of the day, Green Lantern's director. He thought about it. This challenged him, but he got Martin Campbell. 14 total points at this point for Dan Murrell. 6-7, Riley Roca at that point. So that's the end of a 7-point turn for Dan Murrell. Now it's Riley's turn. He spins horror thriller. Question 1, the same name between Psycho and Halloween. Sam Loomis gets it. 8 points for Riley. Question 2, Peter Vincent in Fright Night, the original. Roddy McDowell, he gets 1 point out of that. Question 3, Adrian Barbeau as DJ Stevie Wayne. Had to go multiple choice. Ended up getting The Fog for 1 point. 10 points for Riley. And question 4, John Travolta, 1981 Thriller. Had to go to multiple choice. He missed it. Murrell and Roca both stole it from Mark Riley. Murrell's up to 15. Roca's up to 8. Again, another bad sign for Mark Riley. That ended his 4-point round. Not a very good round in a championship bout. Guys, any thoughts about Riley at this point?
I'll tell you this. For Riley getting horror thriller and then he's such a fan of John Carpenter and not getting Adrian Barbeau in The Fog, that hurt. As a genre fan, that would hurt. Adrian Barbeau is her acting debut, and she was the former wife of John Carpenter, ex-wife.
Oh, interesting.
Well, side note there. But I think at this point, this is when the tide started to turn, and my pick of Mark Yodi Riley was not looking good. It was this early in round 2, I started thinking, I don't know if this is going to go Riley's way. It looked like Roca and Murrell were a class above at this point.
But it's interesting, Aaron, because Murrell spun away from horror thriller because of Riley, and then Riley gets horror thriller. However, the horror thriller questions that he got, these were not easy horror thriller questions. These were dated horror thriller questions. These were some old school
Yeah, you're right.
horror thriller questions. This was a challenging round, and even when you get your strong suit in the Schmoedown, or so you think, you can pull out something from the 70s or 80s and you're You're equal to everybody else. So what you would think would be Riley's strength wasn't. Frank, anything to add?
Riley got his horror thriller. Murrell picked his own category in comic books. Roca spun spinners to get biopics, and you think everyone should come out of there with 8 points, but Murrell and Roca, minus the steal point from via Riley, they answered 7 points, or earned 7 points. Riley came out with just 4 points, and a weird fact of this match is that in the second round, the second question of everyone's round, both Riley, Murrell, and Roca all went to multiple choice in that second question. So kind of a weird thing that happened there. But Riley went to multiple choice on that third question in his turn. That's when I knew. That's when I knew it was done. And I hate to say it that way.
I just want to say that I knew Riley and Roca were done the moment the match was scheduled against Dan Murrell. But that's just
funny
me.
That's funny you say that,
That's just
because
me.
at the end of round 1 and 2, Murrell and Roca were tied. Say that.
Can I pose a quick question real quick? Does anyone think that, or anyone else think, that Dan rolled Spinner's choice, correct? And then Roca rolled Spinner's choice.
Yeah.
Should that not be allowed to happen?
That's a good question. I never thought about it until you brought it up. But
That's the first thing I thought about when Roca spun Spinner's choice. It's like, oh, well, he's going to have to spin again. But I guess not.
Roca, though, you guys spoiled it already. He got Spinner's choice, and he took biopics, which Frank spoiled already. Kristian tried to spoil during the match that he was going to take biopics, and, of course, Roca did take biopics. Question 1, Madonna in Evita. 2 points for John Roca. Question 2, The Man Who Knew Infinity. Multiple choice, Dev Patel. 1 point for John Roca. Question 3, Anthony Hopkins in Shadowlands. Criminally underrated, if you ask John Roca. He played C.S. Lewis. 2 points for John Roca. He went for it there. He wanted to go multiple choice for a second, but then he said, you know what, sometimes you got to go for it in life. I respect that, even though I knew he was going to lose the whole time. 13 points for John Roca.
You are ruthless, Brian.
Question 4, Bugsy's director, Barry Levinson. 2 points for John Roca. He tied Dan Murrell at that point, 15-15. Riley's in the rear with 10. Aaron, thoughts on the conclusion of Roca's spin in round 2?
Yeah, I mean, when Roca got biopics, I thought he might get closer. But I think, oddly enough, in round 2, I knew it was over. I knew it was going to be Dan. And like you said, Brian, you knew from the get-go. I didn't quite feel that way, but I think after round 2, it was pretty clear that Dan Murrell was going to run away with this thing.
After the fact that Murrell and Roca were tied after 2 rounds, and as we'll get into the third round, they were tied after 3 rounds. I'm stunned that you guys are saying that you already thought that Murrell was already going to be the winner, when in fact it was still tied after 3 rounds. That's okay.
There's a reason we're saying that, and it's because Dan Murrell has poise that John Roca does not have. Even when he's tied, even if he happens to be down, you never lose faith in Dan Murrell, because the guy is the most calm, the most serene, the most put together guy on the planet. Roca's panicking and breathing and, oh God, freaking out. Even when he's trying to not do that, he can't help it.
I mean, I can see that point, but I didn't, as we saw throughout this match, Roca didn't really lose it till the final round. So that's why I'm a little.
Now, round 3, my favorite round, the betting round. Dan Murrell spins drama. And the question was in relation to Stranger Than Fiction. Murrell bet 2. Riley bet 2. Roca bet 2. Everybody got it. That surprised me. That's a known movie, but it's not a well-known movie, Stranger Than Fiction. But I guess when Will Ferrell does something that's different for him, it's remembered. Round 4, 17-12-17. The speed round. Molly Ringwald in 16 Candles. Riley comes out aggressive. That also made me think that he heard what Campia said. That's why he came out swinging in question 1. Molly Ringwald.
I knew the answer, that's all.
He knew the answer, but it just seemed like he had a bit of fire to prove Campia wrong. Yeah, I'm adding my own narrative to it, but it sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you that.
It's a better story, as they say on The Leftovers. Question 2, Forrest Gump honors Bubba by starting up the fast food franchise, or the restaurant franchise, excuse me. And John Roca apparently is a big fan of Bubba Gump. I guess I'm not surprised. 18 points for John Roca. Question 3, Brokeback Mountain, one of the wives, Michelle Williams, one of the best actresses on the planet, who quietly has 3 Oscar nominations that nobody ever remembers.
Oh, man.
Or not that they don't remember, but it's always overlooked
Yeah.
at one point. Yeah. But Dan Murrell tied it back up with Roca right there, 18, 13, 18. And my God, this question has been answered incorrectly a couple times now in the Schmoedown, and I still can't believe it. The name of Uma Thurman's character in Pulp Fiction, Mia. John Roca chimed in, did not have an answer. He lost a point, back down to 17 points. What a big turning point in the match right there. And as I've said 1,000 times, people know what I'm going to say. It's just a damn shame that the other 2 guys cannot steal a point in that regard. Yeah, he lost a point, but there needs to be a further consequence for someone buzzing in without an answer, not just a lost point. So question 5, Deep Impact's president, Morgan Freeman, Dan Murrell, 19 points for Dan. He's got a 6-point lead over Riley, 2-point lead over John Roca. Dan Murrell with a slight advantage going into round 5. And you give Dan Murrell a slight advantage, that's all he needs. Most players, it would be up for grabs still, but not with Dan Murrell. Dan Murrell, you give him a 1 or 2-point lead, that's all he needs. But any thoughts, Aaron, on round 4?
I think the main takeaway is that Riley was out by this point. It was already too much ground to make up, and he was done. In Murrell coming out, getting 2 points, pretty decent round. Roca missing the 1 hurt him very badly. I think if you didn't know by now, Dan Murrell was taking it. This round told you.
The speed round was fantastic because it started off with Riley getting a point, Roca got a point, Murrell got a point, and I was like, hell yeah, man! This is what the three-way threat is all about. And then it kind of fell off for Roca. He missed the question, so we subtract the point. Roca capitalized on that 5th question, got a point, put him in the lead. And if Roca didn't miss that point, he would have forced Murrell to answer his 5-point question. Riley would have been out of it, which is unfortunate because Riley really did need to run that round to make a stand against Murrell and Roca. But had Roca not missed that point, very interesting what we would have seen in that 5-point question from Murrell. We could have very well have seen a sudden death round between Murrell and Roca because they would have been tied at 24 points apiece. Yeah.
There's a point to make here, though, that when you play Dan Murrell, you cannot commit an unforced error, and Roca committed an unforced error in an answerable question. Mia in Pulp Fiction.
He knew it.
And that cost him, like you said. The fact that Murrell did not have to answer a 5-pointer was all he needed. Like I said, a 2-point lead for Dan Murrell is like a 10-point lead for a lot of players. But we got to get to round 5. 19-17, Murrell over Roca at this point. Riley in the rear with 13. Riley, nothing is going his way at this point. Now it's comical how everything is not going his way. What did he get for his 2-pointer? Movie release dates. What women want. This is supposed to be an order of difficulty. What women want the year of 2000? That is a tough question, no matter who you are. But again, that was Riley's night. His 3-pointer, Rockhound in Armageddon, Steve Buscemi, didn't get it. He was close. He said Con Air. At that point, Mark Riley, the champion, former champion now, was eliminated with 13 points. Very disappointing showing for him. You want to see these champs play their best games all against each other. But unfortunately, one of them had to have a bad night. Aaron, thoughts at this point when Riley was eliminated?
It was just kind of stringing it along. The outcome was never in doubt for Riley. He was done at this point. It was sad to see because I had picked him, and I really thought that he was going to be the guy to take this. And I know the odds were stacked against him. That's just how it goes in a triple threat. It's not anything against him. It's just it was kind of inevitable at this point. So I didn't like it, but that's just how it happened.
It's hard to see an elegant champ, a graceful champ go out like this. It's tough because who knows if we ever see Riley in this position. Again, more on that later. Frank, any additional thoughts about Riley's elimination?
I mean, stemming from the third round when he didn't go 3 points, really kind of cemented how he's going to go through the other 2 rounds. Not getting, the movie release date question, pretty tough. He has some bad luck in this match. I mean, getting horror thriller and it not going your way, it's tough to recover. It's tough to recover. And you kind of gave your Matt Kearns some hope about answering the first question in round 4, and then you can't capitalize on the other 4 remaining questions, and you missed 2 questions in your third round, which seals the deal for you. It's a tough way to go out, and a tough way to sort of a hiatus, as we'll talk about.
Matt Movies, not to be confused with Miss Movies.
Yes.
Well, at this point, it's 19-17. Dan, Murrell. It's down to Murrell and Roca. I often pick winners, but I often get the mechanics of how these things play out wrong. I thought that Murrell and Riley would team up on Roca and eliminate Roca. In actuality, Riley was the one who was eliminated first. So now it's down to these 2 legendary players, and we had one of the most infamous moments in Schmoedown history, an instant moment that will go down as one of those things. John Roca's 2-pointer, Marty McFly's nickname, Back to the Future. What was he known as? What did his mother in the film call him in 1955? What was the name of his underwear? What was he called? The question related to the underwear, but it was reinforced by the fact that his mother would call him this.
Right.
The answer was Calvin Klein. Oh my God, are written in my notes. Between the Wet Bandits and Calvin Klein, you've got 2 questions that are way easier than Bespin. And he missed them both in the same week in title matches. The irony is he was dressed like Calvin Klein in Back to the Future
vest,
since he had a life preserver, a.k.a. a vest on with jeans. How about that, Aaron Turner?
Oh my gosh.
Guys, I'll level with you. This is the worst miss in the history of the Schmoedown. I'm telling you, this is absolutely the worst. You want to talk about Hector Navarro pulling out Harry Lennox in that match, one of the best pulls there has ever been.
Yeah.
This is this is inexcusable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Complete. There's no defending this answer. I don't care who you are. I know that movie trivia is subjective. Back to the Future is iconic, it's how Rudnick would say. Unbelievable. Could not believe it. It's one of those questions that shouldn't even be in there. It's so easy. And a guy like Roca that prides himself on studying and knowing all these films, he hosts the Cinephiles about classic film. And he doesn't know. He thinks that Marty McFly's nickname was Fruit of the Loom. Oh, that hurt, man.
Especially,
It's tough.
Especially when his mother reinforces the name the whole rest of the movie. But what drives me nuts about Roca in these situations is he'll often say things like, "Oh, well, I don't like that movie. Oh, I was never a big fan." Like he'll try to defend himself in a way that puts down the movie when he just didn't know the answer. Like he said when he missed that Last Action Hero question, "Oh, that movie's a piece of garbage." And in this case, he's like, "I like Back to the Future. I don't think it's a classic like everybody else." So he kind of has this way of putting down the films and not taking accountability for his myth.
I don't care if you think Back to the Future is not a great movie or Clue's not a great movie. I don't care. If you want to be the fucking champ, then you need to watch these damn movies. I don't care. Watch the Back to the Future trilogy. Do Outlaw Nation a service. Watch Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3. I know 3 is not great, but watch 1, 2, and 3. Come on, man. It's tough to watch as a top 10 fan, as a Roca fan, point blank. And I know he feels bad letting down Outlaw Nation. He said as much to me. And he in fact said as much that, he let Outlaw Nation down when I was there at the studios.
Is this before or after he threatened my life?
This was well after. After he lost the triple threat, it's hard to say how bad someone takes a loss when you just watch it on YouTube. But look, I'm in a position where I'm privileged enough and lucky enough. It's really just lucky enough to have been there, and I can see Rocha.
The reaction that he gave us, on screen was different than his backstage reaction. That is what you're saying, correct? Yeah. Just want to clarify because that's very interesting.
No, it is. But I think what you also are seeing is the evolution of what you've been talking about, Brian. The evolution of the persona version 2.0. I think I saw some of that, and I think we saw some of that in the post-match stuff. I think anybody who loses, I mean, we heard Kristian talk about Jeremy Johns losing. He takes it rough. And we may not see that on screen, but behind the scenes stuff, dude, they take this serious.
Aaron Turner, guess what kind of underwear I am wearing right now?
I'd rather not.
I'm wearing Calvin Klein underwear right now, and guess why I'm wearing them? Because my favorite movie as a kid was Back to the Future, and Calvin Klein was ingrained in my brain with Calvin Klein.
Guys,
with Back to the Future.
In all honesty, this question to me is like asking what color is Superman's cape.
It's brutal. I'm not gonna lie, it's brutal, man. It's brutal.
You want to talk about? I made the joke about Bring It On and cheerleaders being a layup.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
This is standing on a ladder on a 5-foot basket and trying to drop it in. It's ridiculous. There's no excuse for this. It's insane.
Regardless of your personal feelings about a film, there are films that you have to go back and study up on if you know they're a weakness of yours. Home Alone, Back to the Future, Last Action Hero. Go and watch them if you know that you don't like them enough to care about the details. John Rocha's three-pointer. Darcy in Green Room. Now, as someone who works in the movie space, this made headlines because Patrick Stewart was cast as a Nazi gang leader, so to speak. This made headlines because it was so out of character for Sir Patrick Stewart to play a role like this. How John Rocha missed this is not as surprising as Calvin Klein, but it is very surprising when this was a significant item on Movie Talk and a variety of other shows. He works in this space. This is also a very big and disappointing miss. Aaron, would you agree?
Well, I actually was thinking like Rocha when he was like Darcy, thought it might have been a female. I couldn't remember the name of the character for the life of me. I thought maybe it was Imogen Poots' character in that film, but I know that she wasn't the leader, so that kind of threw me off. But yeah, that one's tough. That's another tough miss.
It's frustrating when this made headlines. I remember it vividly because I love the movie, and when I heard the casting news, I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. How has this never happened before? But John Rocha's 5-pointer, Hold Me, I Can't. He really paused on this. He really hesitated for a while. It seemed like he didn't know it, which is something he's done before. And then pulled out at the last second. Edward Scissorhands, one of the best movies ever made, if you ask me. Rocha takes the lead for now, 22-19. Dan Murrell, now it's his turn. 2-pointer. Tom Chaney in True Grit. The brilliance of Dan Murrell. No, he didn't guess Matt Damon. He didn't guess Jeff Bridges. He went straight to Josh Brolin. There were a number of famous actors he could have gone with. 22-21. John Rocha at this point. Murrell's down by 1. His 3-pointer. Bruce Willis's wife in Surrogates. Rosamund Pike before she broke big via, I'm blanking on the movie because we've been recording for so long. Gone Girl. Question and answer. Alfie Elkins, played by Michael Caine. He even did an impression. He answered 3 questions correctly to win. Guys, Dan Murrell is the greatest ever. He's the David Dunn of the Schmoedown because he is unbreakable. He has poise for days. And if you were to design the perfect Schmoedown player in a laboratory, he's the guy. Not because he knows things, but because he's unflappable. I'm so glad he made that point about being all business in his post-match because showmanship aside, his power comes from his meat and potato-ness. In the post-match, he was saying he didn't want to bother with breaking his glasses this time. He didn't want to bother with putting on a show, and that is something that he did against Roca, the match that he lost. And Aaron, on our former show, this was something I asked you about. I said, do you think that this affected Dan's play trying to be a showman? And this is why I equated Rachel's situation to Dan against Roca when he lost, because he went out of character, which is to put on a show. And I think for guys like that to go out of their comfort zone, to try to be a showman of sorts, that's not their character. That's not in their wheelhouse. And I'm so glad that Murrell referenced the fact that he wasn't going to do it this time. He feels that is partially why he lost to Roca last time. So I hate to say I'm right, but I have to say I'm right, because I'm the only one who pointed this out. And look, he's the best ever. It's not even close. Aaron, he's the best ever. Say it with me. He's the best ever.
Call me Kevin Wendell Crumb, because I'm going to split this difference with you. I still think that Riley's the best. I think as far as we'll get there. At this point, right now, in what we're talking about now, I think Murrell is right there in the upper echelon. It's 1 and 2, he and Riley. In a second, we'll talk about why Murrell is the best of all time. But right now, I'm splitting it.
Murrell is hands down the best to ever have played the game. And a lot of it, look, what you say, Aaron, about Riley, I will point a lot of it towards the quote-unquote expose, as you put it, towards Riley. I hate to put that out there, but a lot of that has to do with how Riley got to where he was. Riley, he's on the Mount Rushmore. I'm not going to deny him that. He won the title twice. I can't take that away from him. But to me, Dan Murrell is a freaking machine. And look, I will get into what he did over these triple threat match and what he did against Levine when we cover it. I'll get into what he did.
If I'm drafting a fantasy team, I take Riley over Roca every day of the week. Riley is my number 2 on Mount Rushmore. It's not even close. Why am I saying this? Because Mark Riley, not to the extent of Dan, but Mark Riley has poise. Roca loses his shit in big moments, and he comes up with Calvin Klein type moments. Mark Riley would never let that happen. He knows those things.
I got to staff you, Mr. Brian Davids, in terms of Riley.
You can stat me all day long when it comes to Riley versus Roca, but I'm taking Riley.
In terms of total combined wins and losses, do you want to know that number or no?
Riley's the guy I would take, but no, this is what you do. Stat away. I want to hear it.
No, okay, so Roca combined teams and stats. Roca is 12-5. Riley, 13-6. So you're really dicing really very fine. 12-6, 13-6. I'm sorry, 12-5 for Roca, 13-6 for Riley.
I can trust Mark Riley more. I just can.
But Roca's beat Riley more times than Riley's beat Roca. That's all I'm saying.
It just doesn't matter because Roca shows a tendency to choke. Bespin was a sign that there were more Bespins in his future, only much worse than Bespin. 2 in the same week, the Wet Bandits and now Calvin Klein. We can make a whole new documentary about Roca since the last one. It's amazing, but actually they are still making a documentary about Roca. They have a lot to add to the documentary about Roca, but getting to the post-match, Riley announced that he's taking a break for a while. We talked to him this week, and it sounded like the guy was burned out, much like we're burned out right now from 4 episodes in 8 days, as people can hear. But Aaron, are you disappointed? Are you glad that he's taking a break? It's well-deserved, I can imagine, in your mind too, right?
Yeah, I'm very glad that Riley's taking a step back. I think it's smart to recharge your batteries. The guy's been going at it for a long time. He's had a lot of matches this season, whether it be teams or singles. He's been the champ twice. He, to me, has nothing to prove. Taking a step back, no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, look, people don't realize, I mean, some people do, but people don't realize how much the Schmoedown consumes certain players. Just the preparation, the competitiveness. And when you're in a relationship and you have a family, sometimes that can take over lives. We've seen this take over people's lives because they get so into it. It's a show at the end of the day. It's meant for fun, but some people get way too worked up in it. And it's good, as Mark Ellis has shown, it's good to have a healthy break from competition, even if you're one of the best players of all time, like Mark Riley. He still is open to teams per what we're hearing. He can take a break from teams if he wants, but it's still a possibility that he'll stick around in teams. Plus, a team matches once every 3 months at this rate, so that's not overly demanding. But singles, it's best to take a break. Frank, thoughts on Riley's break?
Yeah, I think it's well deserved. I mean, with him being the inaugural champ, him being here since 2014, being by Kristian and Mark's side throughout all of this, I think it's very, very well deserved.
He mentioned that he was going to do some stuff behind the scenes. I hope that he gives Chris Skaliski a hand with the question writing. Chris Skaliski,
whatever he decides to do behind the scenes, is welcomed, and I think will be entirely beneficial to the league. So I look forward to that.
Well, I like that John Roca showed some sportsmanship in this match. That's something that he usually doesn't do. He shook everybody's hands. He was polite. Riley and Roca had a nice moment in the post-match where they said basically that they were burying the hatchet and there was mutual respect. It seemed genuine. Then the Horsemen interrupted. Beast came out. Nose came out. Maybe Nose is already there. He tends to blend into the background. But Beast came out, and then it clicked right away what was coming. This has been set up for a while, and I think this was set up very effectively because it started out what I think was organic. I think Roca just said some things, and I think Beast kind of played off of those things, and then they realized something was there, and then they said, well, let's build off of this. This moment happened at a convention or a panel, and they just said, we had this happen. Let's just use it. So I like when these organic bits of kayfabe evolve, and the Beast dumped John Roca and the Horsemen, as I predicted. And Ricky is the one who was orchestrating it. That was what all the Ricky behind-the-scenes black and white shots have been about. Ricky and the Beast, William Bibbiani, have now united. They are starting their own stable. And as I feared last week, guys, I did not want Ricky going to a stable where there's already a guy who's damn good on the mic. But Kristian kind of talked me off the ledge a bit in this regard because, as we saw with Dagnino, as we saw with the Lions Den stable, you want to have someone watching your back while you're playing. And having Ricky watching his back is helpful. I still would rather hear the Beast on the mic because he's brilliant. I'd rather hear him than Ricky, but everybody needs a guy in their corner. Everybody needs someone looking over their shoulder like Snyder had today. I still think it was a better fit with Drew McQueenie, though. Aaron, thoughts on the demise of the Horsemen? Thoughts on the Beast and Ricky Schroeder forming a union?
Well, I kind of saw it coming in particular with this post-match interview when Roca and Riley were shaking hands because you could see how visibly annoyed that Bibbs was by it. Very good facial cues there by Bibbs. Subtle yet satisfying. Ricky as a mouthpiece is going to be fantastic. Despite what problems we've had with him in the past, I don't want to root against Bibbs, but I don't like Ricky, so I don't know what to do, and it perplexes me. I'm more of a Bibbs over Roca guy at this point, so I don't really know what to do. I don't have a problem with it, really. I think that if Whitney joins the stable as well, that it might be my new favorite faction. The horse persons or horsemen are now down to basically two. It's basically Roca and No Singing because we haven't seen Robert Meyer Burnett. Hell, they even said they don't know where he is. So how am I supposed to believe in this horseman stable? If I'm Bibbs, I want out too. So I don't blame him.
If you're Burnett, you want out too. Burnett's going somewhere else. Mark my words. Frank, any additional thoughts on the Horsemen's breakup and the new faction or the new stable between Beast and Ricky?
If anyone has been paying attention to the Schmoedown for quite a while, I think we all saw the imminent demise of the Four Horsemen, if you will. At least the separation of Bibbiani from the Four Horsemen. It remains to be seen what's going to happen with Robert Meyer Burnett. If you pay attention to him on Twitter, he's spouting that he's been off doing business-related matters. I don't know if that's true or not. That's up to you to decide.
Yeah, me too.
He's gone. He's gone,
Right.
guys. Trust me.
Right.
They don't have much to offer. I mean, the Boston Celtics just wooed a big free agent,
Brendan Hayward, come on, man.
Gordon Hayward. They have a lot to offer, though. They have a good team. They have a great fan base. Bottom 10, their stable does not have a lot to offer right now. They're coming off 2 embarrassing losses, Roga specifically, Nost in the teams, but there's a lot's got to change. And like I said from the start, when the Beast joined the Four Horsemen, I didn't like it from the start because the Beast was too good to be in the same stable as John Roca. I wanted to see these two go at it. At least we're getting that now. At least these two get to have a new rivalry. Roca's not going to be playing for the belt for a while, Ultimate Schmoedown tournament was notwithstanding, but I like the idea of Beast and Roca going at it for a while. This will be a great rivalry. I betray you, Beast, with another great soundbite. But look, I don't know if this was even necessary to begin with, though. I don't know why they joined up in the first place. Was it worth all of this? We'll see. But I love the rivalry that's coming. And look, Ricky Schroeder and the Beast, fine. I would have done something else with Ricky, but as long as the Beast is now separate from the Horsemen, fine. Dan Murrell, in his post-match, it seemed like he just learned the word foolhardy because he kept dropping the word foolhardy, and I got to tip my cap to him on that. But Dan Murrell, true professional, true grace. As I already said, he referenced the fact that he tried to put on a show. He broke the glasses last time. This time he was all business, as I've said. And then something happened. Sam Levine's music started playing. The Schmoedown's worst-kept secret popped up to cash in his money in the bank, whatever you want to call it. I have a lot of issues, as you guys know, with the Sam Levine of it all. I'm not going to go into those right now. It's late. But I want to start with the build-up and reveal of Sam Levine. We saw some shots of Murrell arriving and getting out of his car today during this match. Why not do a POV reveal where we see things from some mystery person's perspective, and that way there's some tension as to whom it could be. There's some mystery. From their perspective, then the music would start before cutting to the main table area where the music surprises everyone, including the audience. I think this moment could have played like gangbusters had they done something a bit differently in this regard. You want to hear the audience. You want to hear the announcer's initial response to his music, not Grace putting her hand in her ear. I just think the Sam Levine reveal was misplayed as far as the introduction of it. It could have been such a more effective moment, making this more surprising. I knew it was coming, but it still could have been surprising as far as how it was executed. So, like in television, things can be spoiled, but the execution can still surprise you. Unfortunately, as great as this event was, the execution let it down. So, Aaron, thoughts on the Sam Levine reveal?
I have many. I'll keep it short. I felt the same way. I thought it was slightly mishandled. I thought it could have been brought up a lot more. Just for him to show up late, like just be like, oh, here's Sam Levine. What's he doing here? And then Grace putting her hand to her ear for a fake earpiece. We knew you weren't wearing an earpiece. So that kind of just defeated the entire purpose of that. Yeah. I have theories about how I would change it, but it's not really up to me to change.
Yeah, I thought the reveal was pretty fun. I mean, Dan's in the middle of his little interview and pops in little Levine. So sure. I mean, you can have your opinions about how they could have gone about it, but I thought it was pretty fun.
I know what these people are capable of producing, and I watch Austin Tackler. I watch all their stuff. I know what they're capable of producing, and I know they could have made this play like gangbusters. I just know it. But look, this is their third event. It's their third event. This is still a growing league. They're learning from every event they put on. And someday we'll look back at these early events and be like, wow, look how things have changed. Look how far they've come. Because, again, we're all part of this ground floor league. This is like an underground league in essence. This is one of those back alley fight clubs, only it's on the internet, it's on YouTube, and we've all been with it from the start, and it's going to be cool to see in a few years. I don't want to go too in depth on the Murrell Levine match. We've been broadcasting for a while. Again, 4 episodes in 8 days, folks. So let's just recap round 1. At the end of round 1, it was 8-5, Dan Murrell. Perfect round for Dan Murrell. That was a sign that he had this match in the bag. As Sam said, though, after Dan missed his bonus question, he's human after all. Funny moment. Dan spins famous actors in round 2. 6-point turn for Dan Murrell. Sam Levine spins comedy. Wisely takes it. And a 6-point turn for Sam Levine. So end of round 2, it's 15-11, Dan Murrell. Round 3, Sam Levine wisely bets all 3 points. They both get the question right. The Sphere author, Michael Crichton, 17-14, Dan Murrell. And it was an interesting point as to Sam Levine taking 3 points. Probably learned that from Riley's mistake. But round 4, the speed round, 21-15, Dan Murrell. By the end of it, Sam criticized the buzzers. Then as soon as he did that, he got the next one. So a dominant performance by Dan. Still going into round 5, 21-15, Dan Murrell. Sam Levine misses his 2-pointer. Affleck's Kingpin, which was Michael Clark Duncan, someone I played poker with at Mandalay Bay in Vegas on my 21st birthday. That's neither here nor there. Sam Levine's 3-pointer. I'll have what she's having, which is a callback to our last episode when I gave Aaron a hard time about when Harry met Sally, and he dropped a quote from the film in response. Picture G Wood. Sam got it. 21-18, Dan Murrell. Sam's 5-pointer, one of my favorite comedies, LA Story, taking the 2-point lead. And I love the fact, though, that Sam stopped to take in the moment where he had the brief points lead on Dan Murrell. Not everybody gets to say that. It's an accomplishment in and of itself, even though Dan Murrell has yet to have a question asked. Dan's 2-pointer, director of Rocky, John Avildsen, he just passed away, sadly, tied it all up 23-23. And to win the Money in the Bank match, the bonus match, 2 matches in a row, Dan Murrell answers Sinister's Ellison Oswalt, played by Ethan Hawke. Dan Murrell, with this victory, cemented himself as the greatest ever. He was already the greatest ever after the triple threat, but this was just icing on the cake. Aaron, thoughts on Murrell's Sam Levine victory?
Yeah, now I'm ready to say that Dan is the greatest of all time. now I'm ready.
Well played, Aaron. Well played.
Thank you. Of all the matches, all the great ones that we had, I would say that I actually like this one the least, and that's like complaining over getting 3 pounds of gold instead of 4. Like it's ridiculous, but I just think after round 1 in this match, I knew that Dan was going to win. Like it just seemed like he was a buzzsaw. The guy was coming in focused, coming in hot, and Sam, I think, even knew himself that he had no chance of winning this match, and he was just trying to have fun with it and entertain, and I appreciate that. But this was Dan Murrell's day, the most dominant performance we've ever seen, back-to-back matches, unbelievable. Hats off to the guy.
I don't know what else you can say about Dan Murrell. He's the best of all time. Anyone in the league currently can challenge what he has done thus far. Look, you got your Bibianis, your Jim McWeenies, even John Roca, who puts up a hell of a fight when he goes up against Dan Murrell, who's beaten Dan Murrell once. Look, Dan Murrell, he had it for, 3? He defended it twice, won it once, defended it twice. I think it'd be foolhardy for us to think that he couldn't repeat that kind of run, if not make it better. So for him to easily dispatch Sam Levine, and I say that lightly because Sam Levine put up a heck of a fight. For him to do what he did against Sam Levine, for him to do what he did against Riley and Roca in a triple threat match, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a fan of the Outlaw Nation. I don't care if you're a big Riley fan. You cannot deny the greatness that Murrell is in this league.
Dan said something fascinating in his post-match interview. I think Grace asked him, which loss haunts you the most? And Dan said free-for-all haunts him the most. I think that's a telling statement about the kind of player that he is. Most people would think that losing the belt to Roca would haunt him the most, but I think he knew that he was better than Roca, that day just didn't go his way. But the fact that the bigger disappointment was not beating everyone at free-for-all because he knew he could beat everyone. That says a lot about how confident this guy is in his ability. He wanted to beat everyone. And I once joked that they should do, I wasn't joking. I once said they should do a Sam Witwer versus the world event in the Star Wars League. But maybe, just maybe, they should do Dan Murrell versus the world in just the general movie trivia Schmoedown. Perhaps that is more apropos because I don't see anyone beating him for a very long time.
Would you want to see a Dan Murrell versus Patriots match, if just an exhibition match? Would you want to see how that goes down?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Because I think Murrell could beat them. I mean, I'm for real.
I agree. We got some payoff to the Emma Fyffe being locked in the closet. And he is suspending Grace and Tom. We'll find out more about this soon. So Harloff interrupted to suspend Grace and Tom. I just hope that they don't keep them out of things for too long because they're too interesting to be kept out of this league. Tom Dagnino is good for ratings. He's good for business. He's good for everyone. Even if you don't like him, he's good for the league. And then there was a very important moment. Dan basically said to not question the Kristian match. He went out of his way to say, I'm not the kind of guy that would play in a league that did not have authentic and true outcomes. I thought that was a very classy move by Dan. Very classy move by Dan. And it's not just Dan. I don't think Drew McQueenie, William Bibbiani, these are not the kind of guys that would play in a league where the results are tipped in a certain direction. So I thought it was a very classy move for Dan to welcome his contender for the next title match in August or September. I thought it was a very classy thing for him to do, to welcome Kristian as his opponent and then say, do not question this. The winner is the winner. And to close things out, Kristian offered Sam a partnership with Drew McQueenie, an idea that I absolutely love. So, Aaron, let me get your final thoughts on Dan and his address with Kristian, and then Sam and Drew.
I was surprised at the team of Drew McQueenie and Sam Levine, but it makes a lot of sense. Two very strong players. I could see that going very well. As for Dan, talking about Kristian and addressing that, that's fine. I mean, it brings legitimacy that Dan is a guy, even from a different company, coming in to play in this game. He's got Kristian's back. We should all have Kristian's back. It's fine.
One more point, though. Sam can fill the mouthpiece role for Drew, which I think Drew is more capable than people give him credit for, but Sam can absolutely bring it on the mic when he wants to. So, I mean, he can do anything when he wants to. He's an actor. He can play any role he wants within this league. And don't forget, people, Sam Levine was once considered one of the best players in this league. He was once considered an elite player. It was a while ago, granted, but it's absolutely true. So, Frank, thoughts on Sam and Drew and Dan and Kristian addressing the audience?
And that's very classy of Dan Murrell to address the audience in terms of the validity of the league. It's nothing I've ever questioned, but I understand that people at some point or time could, given Kristian's recent his run of matches, and then going forward to Sam Levine and Drew McQueenie. That's a matchup that I never considered, but when I heard it, very intrigued. Very, very intrigued and love to see what they could do.
Well, guys, this was a great event. I still think I favor Spectacular, but that's not to take away from anything that took place here. I was wildly entertained. Even the controversies were riveting. Would you guys put this above Spectacular? Do you still have Spectacular above this? Free for All, perhaps? I saw Free for All third, but Aaron, was this did this top Spectacular for you?
I don't think so, but like you said, that's not really the takeaway.
It's a great event, regardless.
Oh, absolutely. Spectacular has a special place in my heart for many reasons that I don't really want to go into, but
because you met me.
There it is. But yeah, I mean, our opinions on Free for All aside, I thought this was a great event. I think that I applaud everybody for the hard work they put into it, the promo work, the vignette packages, the entrances, all the hard questions, all that kind of stuff. I just applaud it. I think it's a great effort, and these events are going to improve over time. So in a couple of years, we're going to look back at Collider Collision, the first one, and be like, man, wasn't that crazy how long ago and how different it was? So just steps in the right direction here. I was a big fan of Collider Collision.
Frank, where do you rank this between the three events?
To me, this is the best event they've ever put on. You know, Spectacular was great. Free for All was a lot of fun to watch. But to me, you know, and I said it to Harloff, I don't know how they're going to top this lineup for Spectacular. I'm not sure, because you have pretty much you have all the big names in this event. Harloff, Snyder, Nerdwatch, which Rachel Cushing, Ken Knapsack. You got Hector Navarro, the reigning Intergeekdom champion, Jeremy Johns. I don't know where else you go. Obviously, as Kristian said, you know, the Ultimate Schmoedown tournament will have a lot to say in how Spectacular forms. But to me, this was the best event they've put on. And that's saying a lot, because I really enjoy Spectacular. And I had a lot of fun with Free For All as well. So my anticipation towards Ultimate Schmoedown and that further infusing excitement into Spectacular is very palpable. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and this is the first time I actually preferred part one of an event versus part two. I love the pre-match. I love the Emma being locked in the closet. Nerds Watch Rotten Tomatoes, unbelievable match. And my favorite match of the day, Jeremy Johns, Hector Navarro. So great event all around. Commenters, let us know, where does this event stack up for you? Which part did you like the most? Which match did you like the most? Either way, I'm so grateful that we get to be a part of this. Thank you again to Kristian for his time today with the interview. Thank you for the event. Everyone who helped put on this event, thank you so much. And I can't wait to see how it affects things moving forward. People are in different places now, and what the Beast does with his new position and his new stable will be very exciting to see play out. All right, Schmoedown Rundown fans, we've been talking about it. We've been teasing it. We've been promoting it. The commissioner, Kristian Harloff, has joined us to talk about Collider Collision. Everybody's seen it at this point. Kristian, I got to ask, how are you feeling? What's it like to have this thing out into the world?
Oh, man, it was a lot of work. And thank you guys for, because I mean, DMing through you guys, it seems like you guys enjoyed it, and I'm glad that you did. I look forward to hearing more of your thoughts on it. But it was nice to finally get it out there and get everybody to see kind of what we've been working on with this thing. And I'm excited about it. I think that I'm very proud of it. And I know got a chance to speak to Frank afterwards when he was in the audience, and he looked like a kid on Christmas. So that made me happy.
How did this event compare to others production-wise? Was it more difficult? Was it more expensive?
Actually easier than the other two, because I think we're starting to become more of a well-oiled machine at this point. And I think that, when you did the Spectacular, nobody really knew what to expect. And going off of the Brian Davids suggestions of Kristian shouldn't be doing this stuff by himself. You're right. And I've had a lot of help. A lot of people have stepped up, and I didn't have to do a lot of things that I did during the Spectacular, still running around a lot, but I had a lot more help this time around. And Free For All was pretty good too. Except the difference is you're dealing with 35 people competing in a thing, not including the people that you're there to watch. And this one was good. It was, I would say, more expensive, probably on the same amount.
You know you've made it when Kristian Harloff does an impression of you. Now, which match did you enjoy calling the most, just as a fan?
It's hard not to say the triple threat, man. I mean, you get that sense of pride, you know, that like not only did you help kind of put this all together, but the fact that people are really enjoying it. To watch those guys do this thing, to watch them compete, the three of them together, the three champions. I think that was the one I enjoyed calling the most because I also knew how much it meant to the three of them. So that one was probably the most.
Well, let's get into each match and just kind of go through the matches in chronological order, starting with Nerds Watch Rotten Tomatoes. What is your takeaway from this match? This match was a terrific match, as usually the case with Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good start to the event. I got chills live, and I also got chills watching it when the Nerds Watch Game of Thrones music kind of kicks in and the fans in the crowd just started getting amped up and started applauding before they even came out, and the kid did like his signature move. It was a great match, and it was a great way to I mean, I turned to Campy after we both looked at each other and like, yeah, we're off. The energy's good. We're off to a good start after that one. I mean, last question. It's a matter of these two teams. Some people thought Nerds Watch made it a little too soon to that match, but I think they proved otherwise. And then you got the old vets in Rotten Tomatoes showing why they deserve to be there. And it was a back and forth. It was a heavyweight bout, and I think that Rotten Tomatoes proved that they're the number one contenders for a reason. Yeah,
Ken's Paul Rubin poll was pretty impressive, and a lot of people have been expecting Ken to be the one to let down the team, and not that Rachel let down the team, but we saw Rachel go blank in a couple spots before she really turned it on. So, Frank, did you see anything statistically or just from your vantage point?
You know what I really liked from Nerds Watch in this was Ken's ability to work well with Rachel. And it seemed like in that second round, Ken was kind of able to calm Rachel down. Like she knew the answer, or she felt like she knew the answer. And I felt like Ken was trying to like help her get there to a spot to where she could figure it out. Like a pitcher and a catcher, that relationship. You know, Ken and Rachel have such a great team relationship. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, on Kristian.
Ken's deceptive, man. I think Ken is a guy who you think is not going to be very good. Very similar to like when you look at like a Jeremy Johns or you look at a Mark Ellis and you go, well, they're just goof around, so they can't be good. Ken is really good. And you look at, he's the Star Wars movie trivia champion for a reason, because there's certain things that he takes in knowledge-wise that he's just got one of those brains. The only problem with Ken is that there's certain movies he just hasn't seen, but he scored a lot of points in that first round. I'll tell you, the big thing with Rachel, again, people don't remember, even though she said it on your show and everything too, she was thrown into the spotlight. This was someone who had never been hosting shows before, had never been doing stand-up comedy like Ken had before, has no camera experience really, and she's been thrust into the spotlight of the Movie Trivia Schmoedown, where she has hundreds of thousands of people now watching her, and this was the biggest event. I think Rachel hasn't gotten the big game jitters out of her system yet. I think that she showed that in a free-for-all, and I think she showed that in the first round. She said it. She said, my brain just it wasn't working. It gave out of me because I think the jitters were there.
I think she's come a long way in terms of the environment and comfortable she is.
Absolutely.
It was really cool to see that kind of growth from the beginning now to where we are now.
Well, she's much better on the microphone now. She's really embracing. I think she felt silly at first with the entrances when she came out, and now she just completely embraces it. I love the crushing of the tomato. I love like everything that she was getting into. I just think that the atmosphere got to her a little bit. And I think that I don't think you'll see that next time, because you're going to see her in the Ultimate Schmoedown team tournament. You're going to see her in the Ultimate Schmoedown singles tournament. And I don't think those jitters will be there the same way that they were in this one.
Sometimes a loss is the best thing to happen to an ultra competitive player like Rachel. And you could see that she wanted to get back in the training room and just get to work and kind of fix any issues that she may have had. And I just want to make a quick point that we're going to come back to later. I think she expended too much energy with the pre-match stuff. As much as I enjoy the Game of Thrones, I drink and I know things, the crushing of the tomato, I love that stuff. However, I feel like it affected her play, and I have a correlation for that much later in our conversation. But talk to me about the kayfabe with Emma and Grace, locking Emma in the closet or Campia's office, so to speak.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's just Tom being despicable. For people who watched the videos that went live today, it happened right after the pre-show. And it just, the pre-show starts, and Emma's getting ready, looking for a mic to start the event. And there's Tom. She told him that Copster told him about the microphone. He called Copster a liar, and then that dirty, rotten scoundrel locked her in a closet. So he's going to have, like, as I said at the end of the event, there's going to be some hell to pay for that. And I actually came up with a decision of exactly what I'm going to do. I'll be announcing that very soon, possibly this Tuesday. You know, he's got an agenda, and so he wanted Grace to go ahead and announce all the matches. It was the last second thing. She was the only announcer that we had there. Jen wasn't able to do it, or who knows what they did to Jen, but Emma was supposed to do the event, and we got Grace for the whole entire thing.
Kristian, I'm worried about these interviewers now that Dagnino is going crazy, locking people in closets. Are we sure Emma's okay, that Jen is okay? Are their well-being, are they fine?
They're both okay. I've spoke to both of them. Obviously, Emma was a little shook up, but also Emma's looking for some kind of revenge, I'm sure. But it'll all come to a head for sure. And Tom's, Tom will get what's coming to him.
I'm a firm believer in trial and error. And I believe my client is on trial. It's in error.
I loved it. I love seeing Emma get locked in the closet. I just want to say I love the pre-match as well, with Jen going around the room and whatnot. It was a big improvement based on free-for-all, in my opinion, and it was really well executed. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Thanks.
Moving to Inner Geekdom, this was probably my favorite match of the event.
Wow.
I did not expect this.
Jeremy had the match, though. And if you talk to Jeremy, he had the match. He had the title in his hand, and he's just, I think the Star Wars thing threw him off. Had he gone a little deeper into his brain, I think he would have gotten the AC/DC question.
I just want to say something about Jeremy. He is the speed round god. He's a bit, he's quick and twitchy in a way, and I think that benefits him though in the speed round because he is utterly dominant. He took out the Crusher and Nightmare in 2 speed rounds now. That guy is dangerous if he gets to a speed round.
He's really good, man. I think that he's look, he beat the former champion, and he almost took the belt off the current champion. So Jeremy Johns, I think, should have earned everyone's respect, as he is a top player. I don't think you put Rachel Cushing or Kalinowski in a one-on-one match, and I know everybody if you put it in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown Facebook page, everybody's high on Cushing and everybody's high on Kalinowski. I think that if you don't get respect for Jeremy Johns in the Inner Geekdom division after this match, you're an insane person.
Statistically speaking, Johns outperformed Hector. So Hector should be really thankful, and I think he said as much in his post-match interview that he's really lucky to come away with the win here because Johns had him dead to rights on that last question. Yeah, it just slipped away from him.
Yeah, it happens. It happens to the best of us, and I think that's what I love about Jeremy. Though Jeremy is that loss got him though. It bit him. He's taking a little bit of a break, but I think it won't be very long before I get the call that he wants to get back in there.
If that Star Wars question was worded differently, I think he would have landed it. That brings up a point that we've talked about a lot on the show, where a lot of competitors tell us that they wish they could see the question on the screen. Yeah. Listeners at home don't realize that they have to do this by memory. They don't get to see the questions like we do. Thus, it's a lot harder. So do you have any hopes or dreams of being able to show the contestants the questions on the screen someday?
Of course, but I mean, look, people also don't realize that we're still a guerrilla operation. I got one writer, who helps out with certain things. I got one editor who gets some help here and there. We're a small band. That's why I tell people think that just the likes and the shares and the comments, when this show starts getting to 500,000 and 1 million views, then I can start doing things like you're talking about. I'd love to do that. There's so many things that need to be improved in the game. Realistically, I can't improve them yet. I'm not a network. I don't have NBC's money. I don't have that type of stuff to where it's just like, give me 6 writers, give me 10 writers, give me 5 editors, give me 6 editors, put things on the screen. Of course, not the WWE. I'd like to be, but I'm not. And when that happens, of course I would love to do that. Of course I'd like to make it a little easier for the competitors so they can just read it out there, because there are things that happen. I'm sure once we talk about my match and we talk about Andrejko's little speech at the end, that there are little things there that there are things that are going to happen while we're running it this way. It's inevitable. It's inevitable.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if this was something that you also wanted, because everybody's been talking about it, but I never heard you address it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jumping back for a second, what can you say right now about a potential JTE and Ken Knapsack bout with stipulations that might be similar to what they proposed in the post-interview?
This is what I can tell you, and I'll give you a little exclusive on here, and I'm going to also announce it pretty soon. The Ken Knapsack JTE match will take place, and People forget that Ken Knapsack is 1-1 in singles competition. If he wins, he would be 2-1. That would qualify him for the Ultimate Schmoedown. JTE has found himself once again in a match, just like Josh McCouga last year. He has found himself in a Ultimate Schmoedown qualifying match, and this time it'll be against Ken Knapsack.
Interesting.
And let me just real quick point out about Ken. He lost in the Jeopardy round that last time, so he's good. He could have won it, but because of that weird Jeopardy round in 2014,
right,
he lost.
Right. Yeah, so we don't know. And then he lost to McCouga. Ken could easily pull a victory out against JTE. Easily.
I want to give credit to RB3 for making Ken a Star Wars belt. That was a very nice act indeed. It's a cool-looking belt. How long did RB3 take to put that together? Well,
again, a little behind the curtain. So I had bought these very expensive WWE belts. As you see, the one that's retired, obviously, and that now lives on the set, which was the first belt that Riley and Murrell and Roca first had. And that once we got the actual belt, it was retired. The other ones were the team belts. The Patriots had one from Top 10 and one from us. So what I did, I gave it to RB3, and I said, I want to turn this thing, one of the team belts, I want to turn this thing into the Star Wars belt. I said, see what you can do. So he came back with that design, and I loved it.
So credit to RB3, as always. You are a perfect human being. It's just as simple as that. One of my main takeaways from this event was there were a lot of soundtrack questions. We get a lot of score questions when the category comes up in the past, but there were more soundtrack questions than usual.
I didn't really notice it at the time, but now that you mentioned, yeah.
Let's get to the most controversial match of the event.
The best match of the event, if you ask me.
Kristian Harloff, Present Company versus Jeff the Snyder. Kristian, let me get your reaction to your match before we get into the specifics. Let's just get your address on it.
Yeah, I mean, like you guys said, I don't want to play in these things anymore. I'm trying to organize these things now, and it's like, and the only thing I initially wanted to do was just avenge my losses to Andy, McCouga, and Roca, and I got those two guys out of the way, and then Bibiani was calling me out, and I was like, I'll just do it. And I figured at the time with Bibiani is that he was so hungry that I'm like, I'll put up a good fight. I'll give the guy a push. If he beats me, then he's in the collision, and I got him against either McWeeny or Snyder. And luck went my way, and I got categories that I looking back didn't want to get, and I got them, and then I beat him. Had to deal with the comments. So then the Snyder match comes about because it just matched us up. It was an intense, great match. A lot of back and forth. The two challenges that came in there, and then when Arnie and Sly came in, I said, why are they doing this to me? And then scores and soundtracks came in, and when I was shaking my head, I was just like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, why didn't they give me like Barbra Streisand movies or something? I'm like, what am I getting this again? And then when the question comes up at the end, and it was LA Confidential, and I was like, if you go back and you listen to what I say, damn it, I know this one.
Yeah.
Because I was like, damn it, I know it, and I wish that I didn't. And I did, and there was just no way. I just don't, like I said, you never mess with the game. And even though I could see the trolls going bananas, and I'm like, if I missed, and I'm like, I'm not missing. And that's what I said. I can hear the comments already. Jerry Golds.
I've got to ask some tough questions now, just because people expect me to do that. That's what I do, after all.
Of course, you're fired.
Please don't fire me. As good as it gets, you wrote good as it gets on your board. If you were calling the match, if you were the one calling the match, what would you have decided in this situation as far as giving or not giving the point?
If somebody would have quoted the movie to me while they were doing it, and I think said as good as it gets, or if I said good as it gets, whatever it might have been, and I quoted it, as I said, shut up, kids, clearly knowing the movie, I think I would have given it to him. But I mean, Snyder was challenging everything else. He should have challenged that. That's why the challenge rule is there. He should have had him challenge.
Do the whiteboards verify what you say, or what you say is that verifying what's on the boards?
It kind of works a little differently there too, because the first person who gets to answer, they have a little bit more leeway, because the second person that answers, you clearly can just cheat off of whatever the person said. Like, this is why I would exactly, and I actually would almost want to go back if I could change a ruling on that, I would change the Kenneth Lonergan thing from JTE, because when you see, I mean, it wouldn't have mattered anyway, but Kenneth Logan, and the only reason he said it right is because he heard everyone else say it. Now, if he would have been the first person to go and wrote Kenneth Logan, but said Kenneth Lonergan or whatever it might have been, then I would have given it to him. It's going to happen. Like in NFL, they blow calls. MLB, they blow calls. But whether or not you want to say that As Good as It Gets was a blown call, that's up for you guys to decide. I think that there's something sometimes that I clearly knew the movie. I clearly knew the actors in the movie. Did it? However you want to judge it. Did I know it? Did I not know it? How do you want to be specific on it? But I could understand arguments on both sides, and I know the comments certainly felt that way.
I was stunned when you pulled Tony Shalhoub. I was stunned when you pulled Logan's Run. That just blew me away that you were able to pull those.
Well, there's a reason for that. Logan's Run. Remember, I worked at Silver Pictures, right? And we had Logan's Run in development. And I had to watch it. I know it. I know the scripts that they had. I knew the lore behind it. So that one took me a little bit to get, but I remembered it. Tony Shalhoub, I just remember from watching that movie as a kid and then seeing him later on Monk or whatever it was.
Yeah, I always figured you were a big fan of Monk, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now let's get to the Guardians of the Galaxy controversy. Jeff challenged this question kind of well after the fact. It looked like he was getting signals from his stable, even though the match had already shifted to round 3, to go back and challenge this question. So it was very confusing.
Frank could talk about this too. That's why we put the subtitles in there to let people know. There was something with the actual song, and then there was someone actually from the audience who was trying to give us a fact check, who was actually speaking to Dagnino, who was trying to challenge, because people don't realize that. I think that you might actually ask this question, Brian, as far as like, what do managers really do besides just kayfabe? Managers can challenge from the side. Managers can tell their opponent, their players to challenge. And Finstock was getting into conversations early about trying to challenge it. As long as the first question in round 3 is an answer, you can challenge.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting wrinkle, though. The flute question, the Kill Bill flute question. The way it was worded, do you stand by the decision that was made, even though wind instruments can be 2 families of instruments, brass or woodwind?
I don't want to curse on the show, but it's an effing flute. It's a flute. It's a wind flute, a wood flute. He didn't know what it was. He could have said, he didn't say that. He said harmonica. It's not even close. It's a flute. Like it wasn't the fact that the Guardians one, it was too confusing. I'm okay with the overrule on that. I think that it's fine, and you got another question, and that's fine. I didn't have a problem with it then. I don't have a problem with it now. It's a flute, guy. Come on. I don't care about wood flute, chiming flute, a plastic flute, a flute made out of pasta. It's a flute.
Kristian, I've talked a lot about your Nothing to Lose tour, as I've dubbed it. Is it liberating when you know that you don't care if you win or you lose? I mean, yeah, you're trying hard as you play, but ultimately, as the commissioner, as the top promoter, you're happy either way, whether you win or Jeff wins.
No, not really, because it's just as stressful, because now you have all these people who are looking at you saying, pressure's on more than ever now. If I win, they gave me scores and soundtracks on purpose. If I lose, it's because I didn't want to play. There's just so much more to it now. When I was playing in 2014, there was none of that. And now it's just one thing after another. And then, you got people in the post interview telling you that the As Good as It Gets thing, and that they were making it easy for me, and blah, blah, blah. So it's not as liberating. And I think that, and after the results of the main event, you don't think I want an ex-Lions Den member to play a current Lions Den member for the title? It would have been fantastic.
I guess what I'm saying is your energy is giving you the outcome that you don't want, because you don't care if you win or lose. Even though you're trying, you're getting the exact opposite as a result. Versus if you're in Jeff's position and you really want to win, you're not going to get the same luck, as you called it. The post-match. And Draco said a lot of things that I've been saying on the show for quite a while, to where I feel that this league needs to kind of have a rules summit. Do we want to allow leeway on these rules, or do we want to have things done to the letter? This has been a hot button issue ever since the clammy, sweaty hands controversy. So are you going to sit down and kind of relook at how you guys approach the rules in an exact or loose type manner?
The next season, there's too much to to happen right now, to have summits and all that kind of thing too. That's why the challenge rule is there, committees and all that stuff. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but it's not happening this season. You know, you don't like a challenge, you don't like a certain call, you don't like a as good as it gets question, complain about it in the comment, post it in Facebook, and have a good day.
The Horseman collapse, you've been setting this up for a while with the Ricky kayfabe, not you directly, but the Ricky kayfabe has been established. I got to say, Ricky going to a stable with the Beast is not my preferred destination just because the Beast is as good as anyone on the mic. So
I heard you talking about this last week, and man, I couldn't say anything, but I couldn't disagree with you more. That is the perfect person for him to align with, because what the Beast needs, it doesn't matter if he's as good on the mic. Having two people that are good on the mic, J.J. Dillon was a great on the mic, and he had Ric Flair with him. He was a manager. Ricky couldn't beat my fan that's blowing on me right now, but he sure can talk. and he's got Bibbiani now. Bibbiani, the worst thing that Bibbiani could have done was join a stable with the top superstar in the league in John Roca, because all that did was get him jealous. Now he's the top guy in his stable, and he's got someone in his ear who's great on the mic telling him, "You're the guy. You're going to be the next thing." He's got this big mouthpiece of a dude who just talks so much smack, who's just as good as him on the mic talking about it. And who knows who else that they'll get and what else they're going to do. And it is a new world order type of thing. You go back in the day when you have guys that are good on the mic, whether it's a Kevin Nash, and Hogan wasn't the best on the mic, but he actually had the skills to get the audience pumped up. Scott Hall, all those things. Like, having two people who are good on the mic is not a detriment. I think having two people who are going for the singles title together and are constantly going to be gunning for each other, that's when it gets disastrous, and that's what happened.
Roca would say things at conventions. I believe it was LA Comic-Con or Kamikaze, something like that. Those guys just kind of ran with it. It felt very natural. So I want to give you guys big credit for how you pulled off the demise of the Horsemen.
Well, listen, here's one of the biggest things that I always took away from my time at WWE is that, and you've mentioned this before, Brian, in the show, is that you always have to take elements of reality and you've got to spin it. And I think that Roca and Bibbiani are big personalities. And if you have them talking about Clue, they're going to go nuts on each other, and they're going to go back and forth on each other, and they're going to have a big, explosive conversation. They're going to have difference of opinions. And if you can turn that into a storyline, I mean, you ain't seen the last of the Beast and Roca.
Let's talk about the Roca The Rock promo. So you had showed us some footage previously of Roca's visit, but The Rock actually shot a promo. How amazing is this from your perspective to see the Schmoedown come to this point? No,
it was great. I mean, it was a lot of fun, and it was one of the things when Paramount had pitched us going, and I had pitched back about the Schmoedown and being able. I was supposed to go. What a lot of people don't realize, I was supposed to go to that thing, but it was during Mother's Day. So that wouldn't have went over well.
Your Hotel Transylvania trip is coming back to haunt you. You could have saved that Miami trip for this one.
Nah, it's still Mother's Day. It doesn't matter what it was. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go for Mother's Day. But we've been sleeping on the couch. But the second choice was Roca. He had lost the belt to Riley, so that was a lot of fun actually having to give him the belt to take with him because he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to jinx it. He didn't want to put his hands on it. And then, he did, but to get The Rock, but to have The Rock take a picture with the belt and have the belt and to have him talking smack, and it was a lot of fun. It was really cool. I just hope it all comes together and get The Rock on this show.
I'm curious. You just mentioned Mrs. Harloff. How interested is she in the Schmoedown at this point? Do you ever bounce ideas off of her? Do you ever show her things just to get her input? Because I know from watching you for 5 years now that you really value her takes on things that you're doing.
Yeah, it's a little difficult though for this because she gets what I'm doing, but she doesn't, if that makes sense. So she'll watch it and she'll give me words of encouragement, but her brain doesn't work in this way. She's known Tom Dagnino for 15 years, so she just sees that and she says that's Tom being an idiot. So there's other things. I try to keep work out of the family life so I can have a little bit something separate,
I guess the point was sometimes that outside perspective.
It does, yeah.
Is insightful.
Yeah, no, it is, and I get it from. I had a conversation with a buddy of mine from New York the other day, and we were talking about just things in general about my business to where he knows nothing about it, but I was talking to him And there are certain things that he said that actually put a lot of things into perspective. So it's very needed and helpful.
Now, Dan Murrell said something interesting in his pre-match, and this relates to Rachel. He said that the match he lost to Rocha, where he lost the title, that he was too focused on breaking his glasses. He was too focused on kind of being a showman, and he felt that that worked against him. I feel that's the same case for the Crusher. So I was glad that Dan addressed this because it proved me right, of course, but that meant he was all business coming into this match. He came right out, no showmanship, just sat down and was ready to play. And my God, he put on a show. Kristian, what's it like to see this guy, the greatest ever, in my opinion, perform like this?
He's the best. He's the best of all time. There's no doubt about it. There's just certain answers that he pulls out that I don't know where the hell he gets it from. I don't know how his brain allows him to keep all that information in his head. He's so good and he's so cool, he's so calm, so collected. And even when he gets emotional, you can't tell. When he lost the belt, Rocha got into his head. Rocha had got him. But you couldn't really see it. You only know that because he said it. There's certain things that, like, oh, maybe he would have gotten that if he wasn't rattled. And you have to go back and look at it. He missed that 3-pointer. Didn't bother him. He hit the 5. Like, some people miss that 3 and then that 5 is on them and they're like, oh no, oh my God, I can blow this. Not him. He's just, all right, what's the next one? That's how good he is. He's just there to play the game. He's the Ali. He is the Tiger Woods. He is the guy for the Schmoedown. There's no doubt about it. Riley and Rocha are great players, not good. Dan Murrell is a superstar. He's absolutely he is the best of all time.
If you were to design the perfect Schmoedown player in a lab, it would be Dan Murrell, not just because of what he knows, but because of the fact, as you said, he doesn't get rattled. Rocha, Riley, as good as they are vulnerable to losing their wits, to losing their focus at times. And so Murrell just does not get phased. And if he does, he doesn't show it.
Between both matches, he was asked 39 questions. He missed only 2 in 2 matches.
2 out of 39? Wow.
If you take away that bonus question, he only missed 1.
He only missed one question in both matches?
Yeah, he only missed 1.
And no one accuses that guy of having the questions.
Right.
Hey, can you address the bonus questions real quick? Do you just go down a list of potential bonus questions? How do you go about selecting bonus questions?
When round 1 is formulated, there is also a Dropbox of, in case of this happening, ask this. So there's like, if you hit all 8 questions, then it's either here's a bonus question, or it's, here, go to this document and pick this question here, and that's how it goes.
Rocha's had a lot of blunders during his Schmoedown career. He's had a lot of highs and a lot of lows.
Yeah.
Bespin, Hill Valley, Calvin Klein at this point, the Wet Bandits, of course.
Yeah.
Which one is the most significant in your mind, given the stakes?
I got to say Calvin Klein.
Yeah.
I think Calvin Klein is the biggest one. I think that, going back to another question, and I get this question all the time, in the 3rd or 5th round, as it would be in this match, the levels of difficulty change. So if you chose fantasy sci-fi for your 2-pointer, there's a 2-pointer that you would ask, there's a 3-pointer, there's a 5-pointer. They range in difficulty. But there's also different options. So there's 2 different 2-pointers that you can ask somebody. The judge has the ability to choose which one of the 2-pointers they want to ask. I almost didn't ask that Calvin Klein question because I thought it was too easy for a championship match. Then I saw the second one and I thought that we might have asked it before, and I can't remember what it was. So I asked the Calvin Klein one, ready to take the hit from the audience, saying, oh, that one was so simple. And he got it wrong. I couldn't believe it. I know he didn't know Back to the Future, but I mean, that one, it's the guy's name for the whole time. I think that had he hit the Calvin Klein, I think that it would at least, Dan, I think, still would have won. But I still think that if you give Dan that green room question, even if Dan hasn't seen it, I think Dan gets it. I think Dan pays attention to people getting cast and stuff all the time. And Rocha's on Movie Talk the same way that Dan's on Screen Junkies News. I think that Dan's got a different way to just take in knowledge into his brain, and it stays there.
Yeah, Patrick Stewart being cast as a skinhead Nazi leader was big news at the time. So right. Rocha should have known that. But I got to ask you, one of the announcers criticized Riley's strategy in the betting round. Could Riley hear this criticism of his strategy?
The answer is, if he was tuned into it, probably. You're not really paying attention to us when you're at that table. You might be. You might hear certain things. There are certain times. I mean, Ken had heard me during his match, but I think the answer could be potentially Riley should have gone for the bank there. Riley should have bet everything that he had on it, and there's no reason to play it safe right there. You got nothing to lose. You're down by so many points. You got to go for it.
Right. In hindsight, it's the right thing to say. I just don't know if it was the right thing to say in the specific moment when he's still playing. I would have saved that for after the match, but
I'm not against that call. I like the idea of being able to call it as you see it, bring it out there for the audience so they know. And I think that's also the difference of when you're on the sidelines watching a game, calling a game in football, because the football players can't hear you, but that's just the way that's part of this game.
Well, Dan Murrell won rather convincingly. Yes, it was close to final score, but we never really felt like he was not in control of this match. He just seemed to have a handle on it. And then there was a challenge from a certain Sam Levine. Kristian, talk to me about the mechanics of Levine's challenge. What did you know? What didn't you know? How did this play out?
I don't know how much I want to tell you about that. Let's just say that Sam was waiting and picking his moments. And for people wondering, why would he go up against Dan Murrell? Why wouldn't you go up against Dan Murrell? If you want to compete in this thing, you want to go up against the best. And like, same thing with me. It's like, I would have liked to have played Roca because I would have liked to gotten my revenge on Roca by taking the title off of him. That would have been amazing. But how could I not want to try to, that's the one thing, going back to the question you asked me before about competing. Yeah, I don't necessarily feel like I want to keep doing this over and over and over again because it's hard for me to do. But if I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory, why not go out against dangerous Dan Murrell? So I can understand what Sam Levine was trying to do. He's going in there, he's also trying to get a tired Dan to see if the Terminator could be destroyed, and he couldn't do it. But as far as the mechanics of it, I'll just say that Sam was ready, watching, and had it planned for a while.
So Murrell beats Levine rather convincingly. Again, Murrell is just the greatest ever. He was never phased at this point. Levine took a brief lead, but in the post-match, you offered Drew McQueenie a potential partnership with Sam Levine.
Right.
Will we get an answer from Drew during Tuesday's special program?
No, not during Tuesday. There's going to be a lot going on Tuesday, but I expect to hear from Drew sooner or later, whether that's going to be on maybe like an inside Schmoedown somewhere, or maybe even a video message. We'll get a response from Drew sooner than later.
I'm very intrigued by that potential team, by the way.
I love that matchup. Yeah. I love that team.
It's a perfect fit. Dan really put himself out there and said, look, guys, I would not be in this competition. I would not bother going through all this if he had any doubts about the validity of this league and this competition. So right. I really like seeing you guys up there shaking hands. And it's easy for people to be cynical about these things. But as a cynical person myself, everyone knows I'm cynical.
What?
I felt nothing cynical about this. It was completely professional of Dan, and I'm glad that we had that moment personally.
Well, he and I have a very good relationship. We had for a long time. I've known Dan before he was ever on camera, and Dan was producing the Screen Junkie show, and I used to be a guest on that show, and we've always gotten along from our Florida State days. How do you not, as a commissioner and how are you not grateful for what he brings? I mean, he's a superstar. He has helped this league, because when someone like that holds your title, it just makes it like, remember what that meant when Roca won the belt. And Roca, in his own regards, is a great competitor and helped build the league with the personality and flair. He brings something that Dan doesn't bring. But the reason why that win was so big was not only the journey Roca went on to get it, but it was who he beat. And Dan elevates the championship. So Dan having the title again is nothing but fantastic. People are saying, oh, are you upset that a Screen Junkie has your title? Fuck no. I'm super excited that Dan's got the title back. That's Dan Murrell, man. Look at all the potential matchups that you could have now with Dan Murrell. Dan Murrell versus Jeff Snyder. Dan Murrell versus Andraco. Dan Murrell versus Viviani. Dan Murrell versus McWeenie versus Cushing. Clark Wolf. There's so many possibilities now of Dan Murrell versus that. I mean, come on.
He wasn't fazed so much by the loss to Roca. What has been bothering him was his loss at free-for-all, because he knew he was playing well. And yet this fluke moment happened, and he didn't get to see that table to the end. It's amazing when I hear him say things like that.
I think the fact that Dan is motivated by that free-for-all moment is just, it's scary in general. And I think that, like I mentioned in the interview, the fact that I know that team match chapped his ass with Roca, he's gunning for me. I know he is, and I'm looking forward to it.
Riley already said he's taking a step back. Do you want to comment on what he's going to be doing And secondly, if Roca wins 3 matches via the Ultimate Schmoedown, is that going to be allowable as far as getting another title shot?
Absolutely. If he wins the tournament, he'll have 4 wins. He'll be 10 and 4.
Yeah.
Of course, he would get a shot. He would absolutely get a shot. And now, if he wins 3 and gets eliminated in the finals, yes, he would be back in contention to where he wouldn't have to win another 3.
There was some debate about this amongst the fans, so I had to ask.
Yeah, of course. And Riley, he's deserved a break. He wants a break. He's been emotionally kind of burnt out. Now, whether or not he's going to compete in teams with Clark Wolf, they're going to have to decide that. I think this is the last we've seen of Riley in singles for a long time. But I think as far as teams go, that's something that him and Clark have to decide, and they've got to decide it quick because the Ultimate Schmoedown team competition is right around the corner.
Yeah, we talked to him this week, and he just sounded burnt, so a break is well needed. Frank, any final thoughts for Kristian?
I just want to say good luck because this was a hell of a lineup, and I look forward to spectacular. With this lineup of matches, I just don't know how you're going to top it, but I'm willing to be surprised.
Well, I think that it's a matter of let's see what happens in the Ultimate Schmoedown. Look at the stories that were built in last year's with just 2 matches to get to the finals. Now we're kind of a complete. You got to win 4 matches this year with a lot of different competitors. Who's the new superstar? What's the drama that's going to happen there? What's going to happen with Bibiani and Roca during that time? There's so much leading up to the spectacular that I bet you will give you something that's pretty good.
Kristian, thank you for joining us today on the Schmoedown Rundown. Thank you for another spectacular event. On behalf of Aaron and Frank, thank you so much for really being the godfather of the Schmoedown Rundown. Thank you so much for all of your support, and whether it's booking, whether it's promotion, you have been an unbelievable beam of support. So I want to thank you on behalf of all of us.
Well, thank you guys. I love listening to your show. I think that the show helps me out very much. It's very helpful to hear thoughts, opinions, and just an overall breakdown. It is my sports center for the Schmoedown. So I encourage people out there, if this is only your first time listening to it, you should listen to these guys every Saturday. They're great.
Thank you to the listeners. We've put out 4 episodes in 8 days. As you can hear, we are exhausted. We're absolutely exhausted. And I for one feel like tonight wasn't my best performance, but we wanted to bring this to everybody. We know how important this event is. And we had interviews with Dagnino and Harloff and all these things. Just understand that we care so much about being your Schmoedown show. So please understand that as we
Yeah, I actually want to echo your sentiments as well. I got to thank Kristian for getting us certain things early to where we had time to prepare and get things done, and for allowing us to put up multiple videos on the channel this week. And thank you guys. There's a lot of people that had not listened to us before, and I think this was a lot of people's first time this week, and we really appreciate it. And I know that a lot of people kind of commented and weren't sure what this show is, but hopefully you have a firm grasp on that now, that this is a show. We're here for entertainment, and if you want to go back and forth with us and give us crap, you absolutely can. Please do. It starts a conversation, but it's an undertaking. But it's a lot of fun to do this, and yeah, 4 episodes in 8 days is really tough to do, but I had a fun time doing it. I had a fun time with you guys, but I just want to thank everybody out there that took a second to listen to any part of this week's coverage, because there was a lot of it, and I know that people don't have a lot of time. So I really appreciate it.
And thank you to Mrs. Turner for letting us have Aaron for 16 hours on the air, plus another 46 off air for editing. So big ups to her.
Yeah, got to be a husband sometimes. But let's get out of here, guys. Let's end this on a high note. Frank Janisch, my man, where can you be found online?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at FrankieJ29. And dare I say, keep a lookout for a Schmoedown recap of everything that happened in the collision. Stat-wise, I hope to have a good recap for you guys. Everything explaining points and rankings and scores and et cetera, a ton of stuff. So if you guys are into that kind of thing, if you're a hardcore Schmoedown fan, definitely look out for that link, or just check schmoesnow.com.
Of course, you can find me on Twitter at BDF331, as well as at my TV film podcast, filmschlubspodcast.com. Special thanks to Clint LaJeunesse at Floyd Pinkster, Shane Bowman at HeisenbergChronicles.com, Ray Ora at Collider, as well as Brian Ward for the special artwork that has official Collider Collision logos. We could not have those without Brian Ward. Thank you so much. And again, thank you to Kristian Harloff for joining us today.
Yeah, everybody was working overtime, so we really appreciate it. And of course, you can find me on Twitter at ATTitanium. I'll keep it short and sweet. Follow the show at SD Rundown. We'll be back next week. So for all the crew here, for everybody that took a listen, I appreciate it. We will see you next week.